You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Dead up perfect in the kid. Got a billion who take on my hate. Look me better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Deku Meets Asta in MHA. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Vizard Masky on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Oh no! All Might thought as his eyes widen in fear. The kid is going to dash. Don't you dare talk ill about my friend. Everyone jumped when they heard another voice shout at the sludge villain. Upon turning their heads, everyone saw that it was the monster's second hostage with the green hair who said what he said. Izuku. Asta is not weak. Izuku says in anger at the villain. He doesn't need a quirk to take you down. Not only does he have the strength, but he also has the necessary brains and wit to do it. Everyone gasps at the green-haired boy's claim, with All Might being the most shocked. And Katsuki could only look at Izuku with widened eyes as he was listening to everything that's happening right now. Oh, is that what you think, boy? The sludge villain questions Izuku, who nods strongly despite the situation he's in. Trust me, villain, I've known Asta all of my life, and he is not a quitter. And I'm not saying it just because he's my friend. Izuku was silent for a moment before finishing with a strong, loud voice. I'm saying it because he's my second inspiration next to All Might for me to become a hero. All Might gasped with some blood spurting from his mouth as soon as those words landed on his ears. It made sense to him that he himself would inspire him, but for Asta to do the same? There must be a lot more positive things to the gray-blonde boy than he thought of when Asta disagreed with his claim on how quirkless heroes are impossible. And for Asta, his heart skipped a beat when he heard his best friend scream that last sentence. And then, memories came flooding back to him. These memories consisted of all the times Asta and Izuku hung out together. There were moments where they would go on small adventures in the woods and occasionally exercise, with Asta doing the most workouts than Izuku. Wow, Asta, you sure are amazing. Please, it was strong work that got me this far, a younger Asta said to a younger Izuku. I need to be in the best shape possible to become the first quirkless hero. He then points a finger at him with a happy-go-lucky grin. You can do it too if you try strong enough. After remembering those good moments, Asta quietly snickered to himself. Damn it, what was I thinking to mope like this? Despite the pain rushing through his body, Asta began to slowly get up and shoot his eyes towards his headband. I mean, yeah, finding out I was quirkless did leave me all depressed once upon a time. His hand slowly reaches for the headband. And then, with a grin, he grabs hold of it. But that's all behind me now. From the corner of their eyes, the sludge villain and Izuku look and see that Asta was now standing with his headband clutched in his hand and his eyes being hidden by his bangs. When All Might saw this, he just continued to be impressed. The kid just kept reminding him of himself in the past. Izuku did too with his actions minutes ago, but in the current situation, Asta hit more at home to him when it came to his past struggles. Holy hot DMN, Death Arms says with wide eyes. That kid is tough. Maybe so, but it's still reckless of him to keep going, Kamui Woods adds with a narrow-eyed stare on Asta. The sludge villain looked at Asta with a cocked brow, if he had any eyebrows. So, you're still up, quirkless runt? Yeah, Asta says coolly. With his bangs still covering his eyes, he slowly puts his headband back on. Once he did, Asta looks at him, revealing the most serious stare in his eyes. Because I'm not done yet. Izuku, Katsuki, the sludge villain, and All Might's eyes widen at how grim Asta's voice sounded. And at that moment, since they were the only ones who got a look at his face, they were able to see a strange phenomenon happen to the gray-blonde boy. Was it just them, or did the four see Asta's right eye's iris flicker red 12 times before returning to its original green color? The sludge villain shivered lightly at the sudden phenomenon in Asta's eye, but quickly brushed it off to use Katsuki's quirk against him again. Alright, brat. Your funeral. The sludge villain began to launch another explosion at Asta, but the boy sidesteps while looking at the walls of the two buildings. Nodding to himself, he sprints towards a wall and jumps onto it. He then leaps off of it to land on another wall and began to run along it by grabbing onto a hanging bar for momentum support. "That won't help you," the sludge villain exclaims before aiming Katsuki's explosions right at him. Asta paid close attention at the timing of the explosives before jumping off the wall to avoid a hit. The villain watched Asta fly towards him as a result of the dodge and sees him PP a fist back. Once he got close enough, everyone watching releases a breath in shock when Asta punches the part of the villain that no one hasn't thought of yet. Gah! My eye! The civilians and pro-heroes watch the sludge villain bobble his head around in pain. What surprised them about it? A quirkless child inflicted that pain. And it worked. After he landed a successful hit, Asta looks down towards Izuku and sees some of the slime loosening its grip on him. Ha! Just as I thought. Asta shouts as he lands near Izuku and grabs hold of him. The slimy BSTRD does have a weakness. Asta. As Asta began to try and pull Izuku out, he heard the sludge villain growl in pain and rage as he shot a glare at the boy. "You! How dare you? I dare because you have my friends." Asta replies with another tug. "And I refuse to let them suffer at your hands." While he was watching, All Might's lips slowly form into a smile, mentally praising Asta for staying strong. With another snarl, the sludge villain tried to blow him up again only for Asta to grab onto the hand he was controlling and aim the explosion created with it at the monster's face. Boom! Aw! Again with the eye. And with that blow in the villain's weak spot, the slime that restrained Izuku loosened even more, and with one more pull, Asta sets his friend free and quickly places him on the ground. "Run back to the heroes, Izuku." Asta instructs before grabbing onto Katsuki's left arm, who's now on the lower part of the villain due to his grip loosening because of the pain. "I'm getting Bakugou out of here next." Izuku hesitated for a second, but nodded and sprinted as fast as he could towards the crowd watching the battle. As he turned his head back towards his friend with narrowed teary eyes. "Win, Asta. Win. Holy hell." Death Arms utters in disbelief. "That kid's actually kicking his butt. And without a quirk, too." Kamui Woods adds. "Incredible." Empty Lady murmurs with her shocked eyes still locked onto Asta. The audience keeps their eyes on Asta to see him now making an effort to pull Katsuki out of the sludge villain's carcass. Asta managed to get one of his arms out, but the rest of his body was held on tight by the slime. "DMNU, brat." The monster shouts in rage as he attempts to hold on to his hostage. "Why won't you give up already?" The sludge villain then makes an attempt to injure Asta by biting him. Asta dodged to the best of his ability since he was still holding onto Katsuki's arm, but the monster managed to catch half of Asta's shirt in his teeth. Asta and the villain exchange glares. And then, after growling, Asta roars at the top of his lungs a quote that stunned everyone that listened. "My quirk is never giving up." With one last battle cry, Asta plants his left foot firmly on the ground and aimed his right foot at the sludge villain's eye. Asta delivers the kick towards the orb of sight, and as a result, the monster felt so much pain that his head was forced backwards, tearing off half of Asta's shirt in the process. Once the slime loosened as a result of said pain, All Might watches Asta pull Katsuki away with all of his might. He finally got him free and allowed the ash-blonde boy to his space. The number one hero's smirk widens as grabs hold of his own shirt's collar, feeling more motivated and inspired by Asta's actions. Heh. I guess it's time to play my part. Everyone else was in awe at what just happened. A quirkless boy has just rescued a hostage from the sludge villain with nothing but pure, raw strength. This was a feat no one expected Asta to pull off, but he did it. And Asta won't realize it yet, but his actions have left quite the impression on a select few civilians. Asta watches Katsuki cough into his hand while the latter shot a glare at the former. "Damn it. I had this, Bakasta. Why did you intervene?" Asta was about to answer, but before he could, the corner of their eyes caught the sight of the sludge villain oozing towards them after recovering from Asta's kick. And he looked very angry. You little brat. I'll kill you." Asta smirks at the sludge villain and pats his chest with both hands. You're more than welcome to try, ya slimy bstrd. The sludge villain was about to do just that, but as he began to lunge forward, a familiar hero landed in between him, Asta, and Katsuki and grabbed onto a part of the creature's body. The lesson I left with you and your friend back there. I should practice what I preach. All might. The audience and a few pro heroes looked relieved when he arrived, but Asta and Izuku were the most surprised because of the injury he told them about. And the two could see it taking its toll as they saw blood shoot out from the number one hero's mouth. A pro hero should always be ready to risk their lives, no matter the odds. The sludge villain shudders as the hero's glare meets with his eyes while morphing his hand into a fist. No. No. Detroit. All Might pulls his fist backwards and swings it towards the villain with the intent of stopping him. Smash. Everyone gasps in awe as they witness All Might's punch slam into the sludge villain in the speed of a bullet. Upon impact, the creature exploded into many fragments of himself. The hero's strike was so powerful, it forced the audience to cover their faces with their arms because of the wind pressure created by the swing. The wind pressure resulted in the air current to rise, and at that moment, Asta felt a drop of water land on the shoulder where half of his shirt used to be. He looks over towards it, but then, the left corner of his eye saw another drop splat onto the ground, with a few more to follow. Rain. Just as Asta questioned the weather, the crowd behind him began to cheer loudly for the number one hero. That was amazing. A male civilian said. He changed the weather with just a single punch. Hell yeah. A woman shouts in agreement. That's all might for ya. With a small smile, Asta began to walk back over towards Izuku, who was crying in relief that both he and Katsuki didn't get injured further, or worse, killed. As he was approaching him, All Might took his leave after feeling more pain in his chest. After he did, the rest of the pro heroes went ahead and collected the scattered body of the sludge villain, while the police were contacted to arrive at their location. Yo, Izuku, you doing good? Why? Yeah, Izuku nods while wiping away his tears with the pros still finding the pieces of slime in the background. Sorry. I really was expecting the worst. Well, it all turned out well in the end, Asta adds while patting Izuku on the back. And I have you to thank, best buddy. Huh. Thank me. Izuku gets flustered by his sudden words and becomes nervous. For what? I didn't do anything but get myself caught again trying to save Kaken. But you helped me keep going. Huh. A question mark popped from Izuku's head, so Asta went ahead and explained further. It's because of what you said back there. You know, after that slimy bstrd said that I was worthless without a quirk. Izuku's eyes widen, finally remembering what he said to the villain after saying those harsh words to his friend. If you hadn't said what you said, I think I actually might have called it quits. Asta then chuckles at himself while scratching the back of his head. Man, I was such an idiot to have such a negative mindset. Being in such physical pain from those attacks can do that to me sometimes. But no more. From this day forward, I'm gonna keep looking at the bright side of life and continue to grow stronger. He then looks over to Izuku and gives him a friendly grin with closed eyes. And I have you to thank for keeping my mindset on track, Izuku. You were my hero back there. Izuku gasps at those last words his friend told him. More fresh tears clouded his eyes as his lips trembled at the kind words. And then, while sobbing, Izuku latches onto Asta with his arms wrapped around him tight. Asta blinks at his friend but widens his smile as he gave him a brotherly hug back. As they hugged it out, Asta looks over to where Katsuki was and saw that he was sitting on the sidewalk surrounded by some pro heroes. Among the pros, all they gave him was countless amounts of praises on how powerful his quirk was and how tough he was while being a hostage. A few of them even went as far as to offer him to become one of their sidekicks in the future. But as he heard what the heroes were telling him, Asta noticed something that he found to be very rare. Usually, when someone praises Katsuki, no matter how old they are, he would always grin and say the usual stuff about how he'll be number one and all of that. But here, where he was praised by the heroes, he didn't do that. Instead of soaking it all up, Katsuki just continued to sit there with a frown, seemingly being annoyed by the pros talking to him. It was as if he'd rather be anywhere else than around them. Asta continued to blink at the ash-blonde boy and his current choice in attitude in the aftermath of the sludge villain's wrath. As he felt Izuku release him and looked to see that he's now calmed down, getting rid of the last few tears with his hand. "You gonna be okay, bud?" "Why yeah." Izuku confirms with a nod. "I'll be okay." Ahem. Asta and Izuku jump at the stern tough voice that came from behind the former. Looking to see who it was one of the pro-heroes sending a narrow-eyed stare onto them. Or more specifically, Asta. Following behind him were Empty Lady and Kamui Woods. Asta looked him up and down a few times before his eyes gained some stars. "Oh. Death Arms. You're one of my favorite heroes ever." The pros and Izuku covered their ears because of how loud Asta shouted. "Oi. Tone down the volume, kid." After Death Arms rubbed his ears, he got to the subject in hand. "Look, what you did out there was very impressive, but this is something you have to leave to the pros." "He's right, young man," Kamui Woods chimes in with his eyes on both Asta and Izuku. "There was absolutely no need for you nor your friend here to put yourself in danger." Empty Lady kept quiet as the two heroes continued to lecture the boys. She was too busy staring at Asta's chest. Or more specifically, the part where half of his shirt is missing. As her eyes kept scanning the muscles that were peeking from the destroyed shirt, her cheeks turned red and she kept fidgeting with her fingers at how well-toned it was for a boy Asta's age. Asta. The heroine was snapped out of her thoughts when she and the other two heroes heard Izuku scream at his friend while pointing at his torso. I just noticed. Your shirt. Eh. Asta looks down at his shirt for a few seconds and brushes it off with a chuckle. "Oh, that? It's nothing to worry about, Izuku. I got plenty more at home." After saying that, Asta grabbed what remained of his shirt and removed it from his torso. Once he did, the three pro-heroes' eyes nearly bulged from their sockets when they got a full look at Asta's abs. Whoa, kid. Death Arms stutters as he looked at his well-toned pecs and six-pack. "That, kinda explains those moves he pulled off," Kamui said with his eyes looking as if they were gonna fall out of his mask. Empty Lady just turned away quickly from the boy while holding a hand over her mouth with the darkest blush formed. Once she removed her hand, she looked to see that her glove was now stained with the blood that came from her nose. DDDMN, the heroine thought as her eyes shifted as far as they could to the right to get one last glance at Asta's naked upper body. That kid is really packing it. As the boys were on their way back home after the heroes finished lecturing them, Asta noticed Izuku's gloomy expression and got closer to him. "Is something wrong?" "Huh?" Izuku looked up to see Asta's concerned expression and sighed. "Asta, do you remember the injury All Might told us about?" "Yeah," Asta confirms with a nod. Then, his eyes widen as he remembered a certain detail from when All Might defeated the sludge villain a second time. "You don't think his condition is worsening, do you? Like, has he gone over his limit on how long he can keep his quirk active?" "That's what I'm worried about," Izuku says as he shifts his eyes towards the ground. "When I get home, I'll send him a message on his website and apologize to him for causing him trouble." Asta could see the guilt in Izuku's face. The green-haired boy felt responsible for the sludge villain breaking out of the bottle All Might originally trapped him in. Even if the problem minutes ago was resolved, he still felt bad about it. Deku. Bakasta. The boys stop walking when they hear a familiar hothead shouting at them from behind. Turning around, they see Katsuki Bakugo 10 feet far from them, slightly out of breath from running to them. Katsuki began quietly before lifting his head up, shooting a glare right at them with BLD shots in his eyes. "I never asked either of you to save me. I could have handled that BSTRD all by myself." The boys blinked at Katsuki before Asta decided to speak up. "Hey, hold on, now. There's no need to feel Emba dash. Shut up, ya quirkless dwarf." Katsuki snaps while pointing a finger at Asta. "How dare you? How dare either of you take pity on me? Y'all trying to win me over or something? Don't you dare mock me. Especially you god DMN Bakasta." Unbeknownst to the boys, Katsuki's glare narrowed at Asta's right eye for a moment after he said the last part. With a sharp breath, Katsuki turns around with his hands in his pockets and began to stomp away from them while muttering curse words here and there, making both Asta and Izuku sweat drop at him. "He's as moody as usual," Asta finally said with beady eyes before looking back at Izuku with a toothy grin and closed eyes. "But hey, all's well that ends well, right, bud?" Izuku blinks twice at his friend before smiling back. "Yeah, Asta. All's well that ends dash. I am here." The two boys jump high in the air with a scream as they heard a voice say those three words. Turning around before landing, surprise was written all over their faces when they see a certain hero in his muscular glory. "All Might? Why are you here? Last time we saw you, you were surrounded by reporters." All Might lets out a hearty laugh before giving the boys a two-fingered salute. "Shaking those people off is nothing to me. After all, I am All Mikov." The boys cringe with twitching eyes as the symbol of peace was cut off by being reverted to skin and bones with BLD shooting out of his mouth like a faucet. "Oi, oi. Don't overdo your quirk." Asta shouts in concern with Izuku nodding rapidly in agreement. After All Might stopped coughing, he wipes his BLD off his mouth and locks eyes with Asta and Izuku, but not before taking a quick look at Asta's bare chest and shivered at how buff it was. "Boys, I have come to thank you both and revise what I said earlier. I also have a proposal for one of you." The boys rose a brow at the man's statement but remained silent. "Without you two. If I hadn't heard your stories, I'd have been nothing but fake muscles and insincerity. You boys have my gratitude." "Fake muscles?" Asta puzzles with a tilted head and a question mark above it. But then, Asta saw Izuku's expression turn regretful from the corner of his eye. "No. It was all my fault from the start, All Might." Asta's eyes widened slightly when Izuku said that. "I got in your way by latching onto you as you were leaving. Even though I'm quirkless, I dash." "Exactly." Izuku and Asta gasp lightly when All Might cuts the former off there. "Of all the people at the scene, it was only you, who's timid and quirkless, who acted." The blonde man then turns his head to Asta. "And your ability to rescue your friend and the hostage from that villain was what finally spurred me into action." Asta's eyes broadened further when he mentioned his battle with the sludge villain. As for Izuku, he began to shake in place with tears threatening to leave his eyes. "Most of the top heroes show signs of greatness even as children," All Might continued. "Many of them claim that their bodies simply moved before they could think. That's what happened back there, correct?" Izuku's tears finally rolled down his cheeks. As they did, he began to remember the past again. The sorrowful words of his mother began to play in his mind, forcing the green-haired boy to slowly get on his knees. "Izuku." Asta mutters with concern after seeing his friend in such a sad state. "Why?" "Yes, All Might." Izuku answers his favorite hero, choking on his tears as the dark memories continued to be on loop. All Might keeps his stare on Izuku for a few more seconds before a smile worked its way onto his face. And with a nod to himself, he clears his throat and addresses to both Izuku and Asta. "Boys. You too can become heroes." Upon hearing those words, Izuku could no longer keep it together and lets out all the sadness from his gut. As he sobbed, all of the harsh words the quirked students gave to him began to fade away like a distant memory. Asta walks towards his friend and kneels down beside him, planting a hand on his shoulder to comfort his friend. "What did I tell you, bud?" Izuku continued to cry for one more minute until he finally calmed down. And with the help of Asta, he was able to get back up with the gray-blonde boy patting him on the back afterwards. After getting settled, All Might began to speak again, getting the boy's attention. "I believe that you are both worthy of inheriting my power. But I can only give it to one of you." Izuku and Asta blink at the skinny hero twice. They then turn their heads to look at each other before setting their sights back at All Might and tilted their heads at him. "Huh." Hearing their replies, if you could call it that, made the man of skin and bones burst into laughter, catching the boys off guard. "I'm giving you boys a proposal. The real work begins here. I'll say it again, boys." All Might points a finger at them with a serious look in his eyes. "I'm asking which one of you wants to accept my power." The boys scream as BLD spurted from his mouth again because of how loud he shouted. "You're hurting yourself again, All Might," Asta says with white eyes. You really need to quit yelling. Right back at ya, kid. All Might counters. You're so loud, you might attract someone's attention to us. The two calmed down from their quick banter. And then, after wiping his BLD off again, All Might began to go into deeper detail on what he's talking about. Anyway, what I'm telling you boys about concerns my quirk. The tabloids like to guess that it's some kind of super strength quirk or something among those lines. And I avoid the question in interviews by making jokes about it. Because All Might, the symbol of peace, has to come off as a natural-born hero. Taking a breath, All Might makes a T-pose to emphasize his power. But my quirk was passed down to me like an Olympic torch. Passed down to you? Izuku repeats with both surprise and confusion. Really? Asta adds, being as bewildered as his friend. That's right, All Might confirms. And now, it may be your turn, whoever decides to be the one. Hold on a second. Izuku blurts out before his eyes became spirals while thinking about what All Might said. To be sure, All Might's quirk is one of the 7 great mysteries of the world, and there's been endless debate over what it might be. Asta looks over to Izuku and saw that he was now mumbling about the subject, making him snicker before setting his eyes onto All Might. Oh, don't worry about him. Whenever he's in deep thought, he'll always mumble like that. I see. The number 1 hero says while giving Izuku a weird look. Seeing that the mumbling is going on for a bit too long, All Might snaps his head towards Izuku. Do you really doubt me that much? Nonsense. Izuku was snapped from his thoughts when All Might shouted. I have many secrets, but I never lie. With an open hand, he hovers it in front of himself with the palm facing the sky. I have the ability to transfer power. That's the quirk I inherited. It is called One for All. Asta and Izuku's eyes widen after they hear the name, with the former of whom finding the name to be a little odd. The first person cultivates the power, All Might explains. And then passes it to another. The next then refines it and passes it on again. Rinse and repeat. In this way, those crying out to be saved and those with brave and true hearts link to form a crystalline network of power. After the boys take in all of the information of One for All, Izuku looks back at All Might. But all this. Why? Why us? You see, boys, I've been searching for a successor for a while now, and I have found 2 people who I find to be worthy, you, and your, muscular friend. You 2 may be quirkless, mere hero admirers, but back there, you 2 were more heroic than anyone else. Izuku's eyes were about to shed tears again at the kind words of the hero he admired for years. But as they were, All Might holds up a hand. However, I can only grant this power to one of you, as I do not think it is possible to give it to multiple people at one time. So boys, conference with each other, and decide among yourselves on who dash. Give it to Izuku. Izuku and All Might do a spit take at what Asta said out of the blue. Huh? Really, Asta? Hold on now, boy, All Might says. You've said that rather quickly. Aren't you going to think it over? Nope. Asta shakes his head with a stern expression, surprising All Might and Izuku further. Have you forgotten what I said to you earlier when you first told us that being a hero was impossible? I aim to be the first quirkless hero, and I intend on fulfilling that goal. Asta looks down at his right hand and ball it into a fist with a smirk. And hey, I was kinda able to prove that a quirkless person can pull it off with raw strength when I saved Izuku and Bakugo from that slimy BSTRD, so if I can stand a chance against him, then I'll be able to handle the others. And because of that, I insist that my friend, Izukumidoriya, is given One for All instead of me because he has the pure heart for it. Asta. Once again, tears develop in Izuku's eyes after he heard Asta's opinion. The green-haired boy uses his arm to keep wiping them away. All Might kept his shocked stare on Asta. The pure sincerity and seriousness in the grey blonde's words made the hero give him a smile. Very well, then. After seeing what you are capable of against that sludge villain, who am I to deny you the type of hero you want to be? The number 1 hero then sets his gaze upon Izuku. Now for your answer, Izukumidoriya. Will you accept my power? After taking a deep breath, Izuku looks strongly at his hero. He's told him and Asta so much. He divulged his greatest secrets to them. And after hearing the kindness of his best friend, and the words of All Might telling him that he can be a hero, how can he refuse? All Might. If Asta insists that I should inherit your quirk instead of himself, then I shall honorably accept it. Asta and All Might grin at his answer. A quick answer, the symbol of peace says with a chuckle. I expected nothing less. The number one hero then points a finger at the boys. Now then, let's talk about our training. For you, Izukumidoriya, to be prepared for one for all, and for you, Asta Kurosaki, to become the first quirkless hero in existence. Asta and Izuku stand in attention, listening intently to the plans he was going to set up for the boys. After he went over them, Izuku and Asta turned towards each other and nod with serious expressions. No matter what, these two intend to become heroes. And with All Might's help, they will pull it off. Honestly, Asta. Why do you always have to be so reckless? Asta chuckled nervously while wincing and hissing at the medicine his stepfather was applying to his bruises as soon as he ran straight home. I'm really sorry for lying to you and getting you worried, Pops. I just had to help him. He's my friend, after all. Leopold sighs at his stepson's response. He already knew what he has done since he discovered it all on TV after dinner was finished cooking. Part of him felt proud that he was able to do the right thing, but another part of him just wanted him to be patient for the UA entrance exams without getting into fights with villains. Asta, I understand why you did it, and I'm sure you're fully aware of the dangers, but save it for after you get into UA and graduate from there. Understand? Yes sir, Asta answers with a nod. After finishing up, Leopold applied the necessary bandages for his stepson. After he did so, Asta puts on a spare shirt he collected from his room before his stepfather brought in the first aid kit to patch him up a little. After getting settled, Leopold coughs into his hand and tells Asta how he learned about his heroic actions. By the way, before you got home, you were on TV. Asta did a double take before the words repeated in his head. Upon realization, he shrieks in bewilderment. What? Are you serious? Why yes, his stepfather confirms after covering his ears. In fact, it was that very news report that I saw what you were really up to. Asta's face turns red in embarrassment because of how stern his father sounded. However, despite some people still in disbelief that a quirkless person was able to tango with a villain, it seems that you've sparked some inspiration into some of the people who witnessed your deeds. Asta gasps at this reveal. I have. Indeed, Leopold replies, seeing the shock written all over his stepson's face. In fact, debates have reopened on if quirkless people should be allowed to be heroes or not, and while there's still people who disagree, after what they've got on tape, there's been a small increase in the belief that they should be given a chance to be heroes. Asta's surprise didn't go away. He did not expect a rise in the belief that quirkless people can still be heroes given the right equipment and training. Granted, the belief wasn't very high, but it was something. His eyes shift towards his feet and a small smile formed from his lips, glad that he was not only able to do something right but to inspire a belief that the quirkless can be heroic. Crazy. Don't think that this revelation will make me forget about how reckless you were, young man. Asta chuckles sheepishly with horizontal eyes while scratching the back of his head. For now, it's time for us to eat. We don't want our food to be cold. Asta blinks at his stepfather twice before grinning and nodding. Yes sir. And with that, the Kurosakis make their way towards the kitchen to enjoy the meal cooked by Leopold. As they did, Asta would tell his father about how he intends to train for the UA Hero course. 2 days pass. And today, Asta was running his way towards the destination All Might gave him with 4 cases of freshwater bottles on his back. After getting the okay from his stepfather to train there every day, though he slightly hesitated with the whole 6 a.m. schedule, especially on school days, the gray-blonde boy makes haste towards the site that All Might has set up for him and Izuku to get stronger. The Takoba Municipal Beach Park. Alrighty, Izuku and I only have 10 months to develop the strength we need to partake in the UA entrance exams. Asta picks up his speed as he narrows his eyes with a grin. Yeah. We've got this, Izuku. After 6 more minutes of sprinting with the water bottles on his back, Asta finally made it to the beach park. Once he stopped in place, Asta noticed something that he did not expect to see. Asta and his stepfather never went to Takoba before, so to say that he had expectations of something appealing would be one way to put it. DMN. Asta says as he witnesses the graffiti all over the sign that tells its location and the nearby trash that's far from it. How the heck did it get into such a state? After shaking his head in disappointment at what happened to the park, Asta pushed forward to locate All Might and Izuku. As he was walking around, his face cringes at the sight of the garbage piled up all over the beach. There were some rusted soda cans, broken TVs, torn up tires, pretty much everything that you would expect to see at a dump. Geez, this makes All Might's choice of a training ground much more strange than exciting. Asta continued his search for All Might and Izuku until he could hear some grunting from afar. Oh. That must be them. Come on, All Might. You're 274 kilos alone. Nah, I've just lost some weight. I'm just 255 kilos, in my buff form anyway. The gray-blonde boy follows the source of the dialogue until his eyes finally lay upon his green-haired friend, who appears to be pulling a fridge with a bunch of rope tied onto the object. And from the looks of it, Izuku can't seem to make it budge a single inch. Asta then scans the fridge that he's pulling, and at the top corners of his eyes, he saw All Might in his heroic glory sitting on top of it while monitoring Izuku's progress. Izuku continued to pull and pull on the rope in his frail attempt to get the fridge moving. But with one more tug, his right eye caught the sight of a familiar person and he looks over to see his friend with the cases of water bottles on his back. Asta. Just as he said his name, Izuku falls flat on his face, prompting Asta to run over to him and see if he's okay. Ah. Young Kurosaki, you've arrived. After helping Izuku sit up properly on the sand, Asta looks over to All Might and nods. Morning, All Might. Asta says before pointing at the 4 cases. I made sure to bring the refreshments like you asked. Very good, lad. Very good. As Asta was about to get ready for his training, Izuku looks at his favorite hero and holds a finger up in the air. All Might? Remind me again why I'm dragging this garbage across the street. All Might releases a hearty laugh while taking out his phone and snapping a few photos of the green-haired boy. That's because you're an ill-suited vessel. After watching his friend burst into tears at the symbol of peace's answer, Asta growls at All Might while pointing an angry finger at him. What the heck, All Might? You just said that he was worthy of your quirk 2 days ago. His body. I meant his body, the hero corrects himself before dropping down from the fridge, drawing a confused look from the boys. You see, boys, one for all binds the physical strength of many people into one. If your limp noodle body were to inherit my power without the proper training, young Midoriya, your limbs would pop right off like Legos. Izuku screams as he pictured his body being torn apart like that while Asta shivered with white eyes. After calming down, Izuku scans the trash with his eyes. So. I'm here to train my body by hauling trash. Correct. All Might replies with a thumbs up, making Asta's brows raise. But that's not all. I did some research yesterday. This beach, or at least this one section, has been treated like a dump for years. Asta gasps at the revelation while Izuku nods in understanding. Yeah. Something about the currents. Lots of stuff drifts ashore. And people also dump their garbage here, even though they shouldn't. DMN. So that's why I saw the beach as it is when I got here. And it's been going on like this for a while. Izuku nods at his friend in confirmation. All Might places a hand on the fridge. Although he's still grinning like a hero, Asta could sense disappointment from how All Might rubbed the object. I'm sure one of you boys know this, but the young heroes today only want fame and glory. Asta nods in agreement. But being a hero is more than just saving the innocent. It's also all about volunteer work, no matter how unglamorous. Never forget that, boys. Then, with his quirk, All Might slams his hand onto the ground, causing some of the garbage to be crushed and blasted away from him. Let's bring back this appealing ocean view. That is your first step on your path to becoming a hero, young Midoriya. Izuku's eyes shimmer at his favorite hero's words. Cleaning all of this up is my first step. All Might nods before walking closer to the boys. Young Midoriya, you want to go to UA, yes? Izuku nods strongly. Why yes, He then looks down at his hand and gently ball it into a fist with a smile. Because you went to UA, All Might, if I can, I definitely want to go there. Geez, you're a blind fanboy. All Might says before setting his sights on Asta, making him stand in attention. And I assume that's where you want to go, too? That's right. Asta confirms with a strong voice. All Might turns around, making Asta tilt his head at him. The hero then turns his head, giving him what seems to be a testing gaze. According to most people, it's not possible for someone who's quirkless to get into a hero school. Asta squints when he paused for a moment. And that's mostly because UA's hero course is the toughest there is. Asta's eyes widen at his next statement. So tell me, young Kurosaki, are you sure you're up for becoming the first quirkless hero at UA? With his hands clenched into fists, Asta booms his answer. No matter what challenges are thrown at me, I will defeat them, because I'll never give up. That's my quirk. All Might takes a step back at his response while Izuku smiled at his friend. Just like the sludge villain incident 2 days ago, Asta wasn't going to back down anytime soon. That was the attitude All Might loved to see. A good answer, young Kurosaki. Izuku nods in agreement before setting his eyes on his own hands. We've got 10 months before the entrance exam. I've got to mold my body into a suitable vessel by then. That's what this is for. All Might says as he presents a stack of papers to Izuku. Behold, my self-designed pass-the-test American dream plan. This training regimen will help you clean up the garbage on the beach and then some. You can chart your entire lifestyle with this. Izuku took the training regimen from All Might to have a look. Upon reading it, he was amazed by how much he's set up so he can become healthy and strong. Even Asta was impressed with it when he got a look at it himself. You even planned how much sleep I get. All Might walks over to Izuku and gives him a gentle pat on the back. To be frank, this will be super tough, can you pull it off, young Midoriya? Well, yeah. Izuku replies with a strong nod and a determined look. I know I have to work way harder than anyone else, including Asta, to make it in UA. Asta chuckles with his friend and gently punches his shoulder. Work harder than me, Izuku. But of course, Izuku answers with a smirk. After all, you're not the only one who wants to get into the school. Heh heh heh. Then I look forward to how much progress you make in those 10 months. Asta holds out his fist towards Izuku. After looking at it for a few more seconds, Izuku makes eye contact with his friend and connects his fist with his, earning a chuckle from Asta. Let's get through this training together, Izuku. Yeah, Izuku agrees with a firm nod. Let's do this. The boys then hear All Might laugh next to them and look at him to see him giving the boys a thumbs up. Now that's heroic spirit, my boys. Now then, let's begin. Young Kurosaki, you leave the trash work to young Midoriya so he can develop his body. But All Might, surely there's something I can do to help. Plus, I know I can make my body stronger than it is now. There will be villains stronger than that slimy BSTRD, after all. Sorry, my boy, but this is important for young Midoriya. Asta looked disappointed. However, the very least I can do is to allow you work out here with him and maybe use some of the garbage until young Midoriya needs to get rid of it. But other than that, stick to your own training regimen, as I'm sure what you've done to get the body build you have now is good enough. Asta blinks at the number 1 hero before saluting to him with a determined grin. Yes sir. And with that said, the 10 months of training have begun. And to say that it felt like hell, specifically to Izuku, is quite the understatement. Izuku's first task is to get a broken 4-row locker set to the entrance of the park and to load it into the truck. And when Izuku was taking care of that and the other garbage, All Might made it perfectly clear that he needs to run and be quick because of how time can fly in such a situation. While he was doing his routine, Asta went ahead and used some of the heavier trash to create a makeshift workout station. With it, the gray-blonde boy got started on his own workout. All Might noticed Asta's setup from the corner of his eye and looked bewildered when he saw the boy lifting the heaviest tires he's found as makeshift weights. Ha! Smart kid. After a good amount of time, the boys' training was paused so that they can head off to their school. During their trip there, the boys would talk about the usual stuff before they would have to part ways to go to their different classrooms. During the free times at school, Asta scribbled in his notebook on the workout times for both when he was on his own, and when he's training at the beach park with Izuku and All Might. When the other students walked by him doing so, some gave him weird stares and some rolled their eyes, still under the belief that quirkless heroes are an impossibility. However, there were a few students who looked at him with inspiration in their eyes and mentally cheered the boy on for his goals. Apparently, news of Asta's actions against the sludge villain didn't go unnoticed by the students and teachers, and it sparked a few conversations between the students related to the incident. Asta's ears would always twitch whenever he heard some of the students whisper about what he did back then. He heard some say how suicidal he was, and some say that he was rather brave. Other times, he would hear an occasional giggle from a few of the girls. But Asta just ignored those murmurs and continued jotting stuff down in his notebook. While he was flattered by those who call him brave, he can't let the comments distract him from doing what is important. And that was to make sure that he was strong enough and smart enough to pass UA's entrance exams. And he hopes to do so alongside his best friend, Izukumidoriya. Once school was finished, Asta was jogging his way back to the beach while going over the notes he's written down for training. Okay, that should be everything necessary for the routine. Now to head back to the beach and resume my training with All Might and Izuku. Excuse me. Just as he was about to break into a run, Asta halted when he heard someone speak to him. Turning his head, he saw a girl who appears to be the same age as him with short black hair blocking the view of her eyes. And judging by her outfit, she doesn't go to his junior high school. Can I help you? Asta asks politely, noticing her shy posture. I was wondering, are you that boy on TV that was able to save 2 other boys from a villain made of sludge? Asta blinked at the girl in surprise. He knew that some people were aware of his previous actions based on the stares he was given, but he never expected a person to ask him about it. Yeah. He then adopts a bashful face as he proceeds to scratch the back of his head. Although, I really wasn't expecting my actions to make it on the news. I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. Nothing more, nothing less. From behind her bangs, the girl's cheeks turned light red as she fidgets with her fingers. Well, you see. I'm quirkless myself. Asta gains a surprised expression at the reveal. And I saw you do what you did on the news, and I just want to say, I'm cheering you on, mister. Asta was taken back by the girl's words. You are? Yes. The girl answers. People are always saying that the quirkless can't accomplish anything heroic, but if you ask me, you proved them wrong. That's why I hope you continue doing what you're doing and become a hero. We need more people like you. Asta was blown away by this girl's support. When most people heard of his goals, they usually scoff at him and tell him to think realistically. But this girl told him that he should keep going. And she's quirkless too. Oh. Well. Thank you for your support. Asta booms with a thumbs up, making the girl blush at the gesture. I'll be sure to remember your kind words as I continue my path on becoming the first quirkless hero. Hey, I know you. You're that quirkless kid who's been able to hold his own against that villain. Asta and the girl turned their heads behind them and saw a gray-haired boy a year or two younger than them walking by with a smile, recognizing the gray-blonde hair on the boy when he spotted him. Yes, that's right, the girl confirms with a smile. This boy here is going to prove that being quirkless isn't a roadblock for being a hero. Whoa. That's cool. Asta was once again surprised by the boy's response, not expecting that he too would have a positive reaction. Heck, I don't think my own quirk can measure up to what he's capable of. Asta rose a brow at the boy. What about your quirk? Surely it does something useful for you. The boy laughs awkwardly while scratching his cheek. It isn't anything to be considered heroic. All I can do with it is radiate a good amount of steam off of my body. That's it. Asta puts a hand on his chin while taking in the information on the boy's quirk. After thinking about it long enough, he sets his eyes on the boy. Lad, have you thought about being a hero despite your quirk? The boy blinks at Asta's sudden question. He was hesitant for a moment, but he slowly nodded. Then you should experiment with it. I'm sure you can find some great use with your steam. Huh? The boy was shocked by what Asta said. Do you think so? Yes. You just need to see what else you can do with it as soon as you get home. The girl looked on in surprise at the gray-blonde boy encouraging the boy to try what he can with his steam quirk. And if that's not enough right now, Asta pauses to pull back the sleeves of his uniform shirt and flex his arms. Make up for it in muscle. The boy gasps at how muscular Asta's arms were while the girl's blush turned darker at them. I assure you, there are plenty of quirked people who also fight physically. So if your quirk isn't enough to become heroic, then use your muscle to add on to your strength. The boy gasps at Asta's advice before looking down at his own hands. Wow. I never thought about that. Well, if you want to be a hero, you better start thinking about that. Asta then looks at the time on his phone before looking back at the boy and the girl. Anyway, I'd love to stay and chat more, but I ought to be off right now. The boy starts to run towards his next destination. He takes a few more steps before turning back at them with a grin, a wink, and a thumbs up. I've got a hero course to prepare for. The girl and the boy watch Asta run off to do just that. Good luck, mister. The boy shouted to Asta while raising a fist. Fight on. The girl giggled at the steam quirk user and sets her eyes back onto the running Asta. She smiles at the gray-blonde boy, hoping that he will be able to become a hero despite his lack of a quirk. 5 months pass. Asta and Izuku continue to train their bodies to the best of their abilities so that they could partake in the UA entrance exams. But during those months, Asta had to do a lot more training on his own than in the beginning of it because of how much garbage Izuku was able to take care of so far. The green-haired boy isn't on the level of strength to inherit one for all just yet, but he just got to the point where he could lift the heavier objects. They weren't as heavy as, let's say, a building and a truck, but they were heavy enough to test his current strength. And so, Asta just did his usual routine on the current month in his backyard. He would still train with Izuku and Allmight once in a while at the beach, but since Allmight would take him out to do other types of workouts, it was a rare occurrence. Right now, the gray-blonde boy was wrapping up his routine with push-ups after he did the other workouts, some shadow boxing, and a parkour exercise that involved him jumping off a wall, or since it's the backyard, a thick tree, and kicking afterwards. He got the hang of it, but it's far from perfect. 998, 999, 1000. Just as he finished doing this amount of push-ups, Asta flips over on his back and grabs a nearby water bottle. And that's it for today. Asta unscrews the cap with a single slap of his hand and began to chug some of the hydrating liquid by squeezing the bottle. SS so cold, but it's worth it. After getting himself relaxed with his beverage, Asta began to think about his friend, Izuku. Ever since those 5 months went by, he couldn't help but notice Izuku looking more tired and tired by each passing week. Every time he asked if he's okay, Izuku would insist that he's fine and that he's just a little worn out from training. But the way Asta saw it, his condition didn't look like something he would consider to be, a little. Either way, Asta always made sure to tell Izuku to not overdo it every day they walked to school together. Izuku acknowledged his advice, but as the days went by, Asta wondered if he's actually taking it easy. The gray-blonde boy sighs before taking another swig of water. He then looks up at the sky and furrows his brows. Izuku. I hope you're doing okay, bud. Please don't strain yourself and overdo it. Asta remembers doing the same thing when he was younger and starting out. It was very unpleasant, and he had to learn the strong way that he shouldn't rush his training. Asta. Dinner's ready. Asta's eyes widened when he heard his stepfather and got up from his spot. I'll be right there, Pops. 2 more months go by. On the afternoon of today, Asta decided to spend the last part of his training going on a run. With his black hoodie and gray running pants on, he begins his jog around the neighborhood. He started slow at first, but he picked up the pace shortly after. He thought about adding on to his run with some parkour, but because of how late in the afternoon it is, he decided to not do any for today. As he was running, his thoughts were once again on his friend. Izuku's weariness was becoming more evident to Asta as the two kept walking to school together. But despite the green-haired boy's fatigue, he told him that he was making good progress and to not worry too much about him, the same usual sayings when Asta showed his concern. Asta's eyes remained narrowed as his mind kept lingering on to Izuku's condition. He finds it great that Izuku's pushing himself, but, again, if he overdoes it, it will end ugly. As he kept jogging, the corner of his eyes caught a familiar mess of blonde hair and looked to see a man wearing a coat. Is that All Might? Asta sprints faster towards him to get a closer look at the man in question. And sure enough, it was the same messy hair that's associated with the number one hero's skinny form. Mr. All Might jumped when he heard someone shout at him. Turning around, he sighed with a hand on his head when it was just the gray-blonde boy who noticed him. Oh, young Kurosaki. Hello, All Might greeted with a slight wave. Out on a run, I see. Asta nods in response before looking beside the hero. Izuku's not with you? All Might shakes his head. No, we just finished up training for the day. He then chuckles to himself while placing his hands in his coat pockets. Crazy kid. I even told him that overworking himself wasn't part of the plan, and yet he still persists. Asta blinks in surprise. You never intended for that to happen. Of course not. All Might confirms with some BLD bursting out of his mouth, making Asta shiver at the sight. In my past-the-test American dream plan, I designed it based on what young Midoriya needed to do with his body specifically to make it before the day of the UA entrance exams. Overdoing it is no good for him. That's exactly what I told him. All Might looks at Asta in surprise when he revealed that. Every day, whenever we walked together at school, I would always see my friend drowsy as heck. He'd even walk a few steps with his eyes closed once before I had to shake him awake before he walked into either an open road or a telephone pole. All Might cringed at that part. I kept telling him to not overdo it, but he kept assuring me that he's okay. No offense to you, All Might, but it kinda made me feel like it was because of the training regimen you gave to Izuku. All Might looked at Asta for a moment before shrugging with a sigh. No. I don't blame you for your accusation one bit. I am partially at fault for creating such schedules for young Midoriya. And because of that, I'm modifying the plan so that not only will he be strong enough to inherit my quirk, but so he won't have to overdo it ever again. Asta looked on at the symbol of peace with an amused expression. This just showed him how much the hero cared for Izuku's physical condition. Well, I'm glad you were able to take care of that part. During those times, I was always worried that Izuku would eventually pass out at any moment. Yeah, All Might adds before smirking at Asta. But you know, when I told young Midoriya about how overworking himself isn't okay, he still wouldn't back down. Asta blinked a few times but then sighed while shifting his eyes to the side. I figured he wouldn't. Being a hero is his ultimate dream, after all. All Might hums with a nod before continuing. And you know what he said when I told him about overworking himself? He said that he would never catch up if he hadn't worked harder than you or anyone else, that he wanted to be just like me. Asta's eyes widen at this revelation before All Might chuckles again. I tell you, he's got his eye on the far future. And when I heard such dumb zeal from him, it reminded me of myself during my youth. All Might's eyes shift and I can't help but keep thinking that it's because of you, young Kurosaki. Asta does a double take before pointing at himself with beady pupils. Me? That's right. In fact, it was evident to me when he told that sludge villain off after he called you terrible things. And while I was training him, I would always hear him murmur your name, followed by, must do better and other phrases related to that. All Might laughs gently before continuing. And that's when I got the impression that he got his resolve from you. While I don't know your past with young Midoriya, I was able to figure out that you were, and still are, a great influence on the lad. Asta's expression stayed shocked as he processed what the number one hero has told him. After listening, his eyes soften and shift downwards. Wow. I had no idea I motivated him that much. I just told him that he could do it because I developed the necessary strength and body to do it. Heck, I still think that our friendship first started when I first discovered that he was quirkless after I saved him from some bullies. Asta paused at the last part, remembering who those bullies were before continuing. We got to know one another after we introduced ourselves to each other, and during our hangouts, which eventually lead to us talking about our favorite heroes, playing games, watching movies, and all that other fun stuff. I've learned why Izuku wanted to be a hero despite lacking a quirk. I'm sure you know the reason already, so I'll spare the extra talk, but when he told me all of that, I knew that he can do it, just like how I plan to do it myself. Asta pauses again, lifting a hand towards himself before balling it into a fist. His mind, body, and soul are perfect to be a hero. That's exactly why he's a good candidate for your quirk while I continue my path as the first quirkless hero. And if your condition will one day make access to your quirk impossible, then I'm sure my friend will be able to carry on your legacy. All Might took in what Asta said and was astonished for the boy to have so much trust in Izuku. And for it to all start with the discovery of another quirkless kid, he couldn't help but find it poetic. It made perfect sense to the number one hero that Asta's refusal to give up would be what would make Izuku not to quit either, even when he's overworked himself on the training regimen. After breathing through his nose, All Might turns his head to Asta. Young Kurosaki. Yes sir. Asta looked up towards the symbol of peace and saw that he was smiling at him with gentle eyes. You're a good kid. Asta was taken off guard by his sudden compliment before smiling and blushing with horizontal eyes. Oh, it's nothing. I'm just saying what I believe. All Might laughs with Asta before scratching the back of his head with a wider grin. Well, I better be off now. I got some stuff to take care of, one of which is modifying young Midoriya's plan. As for you, you better run along. Don't want to keep you off your own training, after all. Yeah. You got it. Asta replies with a strong nod before turning around and running. See you later, All Might. All Might chuckles sheepishly while waving his hand goodbye to the gray-blonde boy. Loud kid. Good thing no one else was around where we were. After sighing a breath, the hero keeps his stare on the sprinting Asta and narrows his eyes. Don't worry, young Kurosaki. I'll make sure you get into that school. Just keep getting stronger and leave the rest to me. Suddenly, All Might's phone began to go off, making him jump when his ringtone played. He quickly grabs it from his pocket and answers it. Hello. Yes. After hearing everything the caller said, his eyes widen with some blood trickling from his mouth. Are you serious? He's. All Might listened carefully before his lips started forming into the widest smile possible before breathing from his nose in relief. Yes, I heard you loud and clear. I understand. Thank you. Goodbye. All Might hangs up his phone. After storing it back in his pocket, he looks back at the area where Asta was and saw that he was no longer there. Despite that, he grins at the direction he's facing while still being glad that he got the phone call he received. Have you picked out what you're gonna wear for the entrance exams, Asta? Yes sir, Asta answers his stepfather as he held onto his hoodie and running pants while he still wore his junior high school uniform. Today was the day, exam day. Last night, Asta made sure to set his alarm clock as early as he could while at the same time getting a good night's sleep. And it worked out for him, as he was wide awake and ready to take on anything. After finishing his breakfast, consisting of bacon and eggs, Asta packs his hoodie and pants into his book bag and zips it up. After putting the bag on his back, he was ready to go. Asta, a moment of your time before you leave. Yes sir. Asta turns his head around towards Leopold and sees his gentle smile on his lips. I just want you to know that no matter the outcome of the exams, I'll always be proud of you. Asta's eyes broaden at his father's words before giving him a smile back. Thanks, Pops. Not just for what you said, but for everything. The two hug each other for a moment before Leopold allowed Asta to turn back around and get his shoes on at the door. After placing his hand on the door, Asta flashes his father a thumbs up with closed eyes and a toothy smirk. I'll be off now. Good luck, son. Make history out there. The two nod at each other before Asta opens the door and leaves the house, closing the door behind him while doing so. After he left, Leopold looks at the family photos of him and Asta. Some pictures consist of him and the gray-blonde roasting marshmallows and other father-son activities, some have Asta alone showing off his sketch of his hero costume and working out on a stable tree branch, and some show him and Izuku having a great time together. As he looked at the photos, Leopold's smile grew and looked back at the front door. You can do it, Asta. You've proved some people wrong during the sludge villain incident, I'm sure you can do the same at the entrance exams. After closing the door, Asta looks up towards the sky with his fist raised high. Alright, today is the day. I'm going to be giving it my all. Looking back forward to see where he's going, his eyes widen when he sees a familiar blonde man with his truck behind him. All Might? Asta exclaims, not expecting to see him today. Good morning, young Kurosaki, the #1 hero said humbly. I'm on my way to go see young Midoriya. Want a ride? Asta blinks twice at the hero's offer before shaking his head. Oh no, that's fine. I can run up there myself. Please, I insist. After all, you should save your strength for the U entrance exams. Asta thinks about it for a while before deciding to nod. Well, if you put it like that, then I guess I'll accept your offer, then. Asta hops into the truck with All Might and he began to drive to his next destination. During the ride, Asta looks over to All Might and asks him a question. So, how was Izuku doing after you modified your plan? He's doing swell, even though he'll sometimes still overdo it a little, All Might replies while keeping his eyes on the road. But today, he told me to meet him up on the beach, so that's where we're going to meet him. Eh? You mean he went over there by himself? That's what it sounded like to me. Asta looks down towards his own legs with worry in his narrowed eyes. Damn it, Izuku. You better not have strained yourself today. The two have finally arrived on the beach. As they got out, All Might sighs a breath while Asta was more concerned about his friend. Alright, Izuku, where are you? I hope you haven't dash. Asta's thoughts were immediately cut off when he and All Might heard a familiar voice roaring at the top of his lungs. After searching for a few seconds, their eyes freeze when they see that it was Izukumidoriya, standing on top of all the trash he's piled up and moved away from the beach, continuing to boom in triumph. Holy hell, Asta murmurs with his eyes still glued onto the howling Izuku. He actually did it. All Might drifts his stare from Izuku to the beach, and, amazing, does not begin to describe the sight he's seeing. DMN. Young Midoriya went beyond the assignment. Incredible. And there's not a speck of trash left. All Might's body shivers in astonishment as his eyes slowly go wider. You made it just in time and exceeded my expectations. Holy. Holy. He then bulges into his muscular heroic form with a wide, proud grin on his face. Holy CRP baskets. Asta snickers at his best friend's accomplishment before it turned into a glad laugh. Way to go, Izuku. Izuku sluggishly turns his head left when he heard Asta shout at him. Ta. After he said his friend's name, Izuku began to feel woozier and started to fall off the rubble, making the gray-blonde boy gasp. OCRP. Izuku. Asta began to run so he can catch his friend, but All Might beats him to the punch. Well done, lad. You did great. Asta caught up with the symbol of peace and sees a smiling Izuku looking up at All Might. All Might. I did it. Izuku says before shifting his eyes towards Asta, prompting him to smirk back at the green-haired boy. Very astonishing, young Midoriya. All Might praises while helping him back to his feet with the assistance of Asta. You're a real entertainer, and a teen, no less. The hero then pulls out his phone and opens up a photo. Take a look here, my boy. Izuku slowly blinks at All Might's phone. What? What is it? Asta leans over to have a look himself and sees that it was Izuku in the picture, prompting him to raise an eyebrow. This is you 10 months ago, young Midoriya, All Might explains before putting his phone away and pointing at the green-haired kid. And look at you now. Excellent work, lad. Truly. Asta went ahead to look at Izuku's current physique and whistled at it. DMN, Izuku. That's quite the strong body you've developed. Good on ya, bud. Izuku chuckles before wiping some sweat off of his forehead while panting. Thanks, but it's not as good as your physique. Asta. Maybe not, but the path forward is ever so slightly clearer, young Midoriya. All Might exclaims with a humble laugh. But you're a true blue vessel now. Izuku releases another breath while lifting a hand towards himself. Feels like I cheated. Though. Oi. Don't say that. Asta scolds before giving him some pats on the shoulder. You've worked to the bone to get this strong. And don't get me started on how you've overworked yourself despite me telling you many times not to do that. Izuku chuckles again with tears streaming down his face. Even so. I got all this help from you, All Might. I've been blessed. Izuku shifts his eyes towards Asta before finishing. Twice. All Might believes that Asta is correct on what he said earlier. This is all because of Izuku's own efforts. There was no cheating involved at all. Now, you gotta quit being a crybaby. All Might says while patting the green-haired boy on the back. Anyway, time for your awards. Ceremony, Izukumidoriya. Izuku wipes away his tears before nodding and sniffling. As soon as he settled down, All Might plucked a strand of hair from his eyebrow, puzzling Asta as he saw him do that. You know what they say, there's a big difference between being born with that silver spoon, and working your butt off to earn it. Take this to heart, young Midoriya. You've earned this power fair and square. Izuku looks forward and firm at his hero and gives him a strong nod with clenched fists. To the green-haired boy, it was like a twist right out of those comic books within his reach. And now, with a proud smile, he was going to make that leap. With a nod back, All Might presents the strand of hair to Izuku, who looked at it with curiosity. Now. Eat this. Izuku froze at the hero's sudden command while Asta stared at him with beady eyes and a tilted head. Huh. I said EA dash. We've heard what you've said. Asta snaps. We want an explanation. Oh. All Might understood and went ahead. You see, young Midoriya, the only way for a successor to inherit one for all is to consume the DNA of the previous user. It really doesn't matter what it is you eat. As long as you get my DNA, the quirk is yours. Now hurry. Eat. Izuku screams while flailing his arms. This is not exactly how I thought this would go. Come on, young Midoriya. You must consume the hair. Quickly. Asta cringes at the sight of All Might telling Izuku to eat his hair just so he can acquire his quirk. Once Izuku resigned to this instruction, Asta forced one eye shut while the other peeked through its lids as it watches the green-haired boy painfully consume the strand. Well. At least we have some water so he can wash it down, right? With 3 hours left until the entrance exams begin, All Might drove Izuku back to his apartment so he can take a quick shower and pack his bag with what he needs. As soon as he entered the building, Asta went ahead and got out of All Might's truck so he can wait for his friend. Are you sure you don't want me to drive you to UA so you can at least be there early? Asta shakes his head while smiling. Nah. I prefer to get there with my friend with me. You go on ahead and do what you need to do, All Might. The number one hero blinks at the gray-blonde boy before nodding at him. Very well, then. All Might opens his truck's door and enters the vehicle. After closing the door, he kept the window down so he can continue to speak to Asta. Oh yeah, one more thing. About UA and their acceptance on the quirkless. Asta's face remained stern, knowing exactly where this is going. Let me guess, they're still unsure if I can be a hero because of my lack of a quirk. Well. Not quite. Asta rose a brow at that. In fact, I've been told by one of the higher-ups that after they've reviewed the footage of your battle against the sludge villain, they're considering allowing a quirkless person take the exam for the hero course. His smile widens. Starting with you, young Kurosaki. Ah really? Asta had to admit, he did not expect to hear that. But how do you know that? All Might chuckles while turning on the ignition. Keep this between us until it's learned by everyone else, lad. I'm gonna be a teacher at UA. What? Asta was about to ask more questions, but All Might already took off after telling him of his position in the hero school. Asta remained bewildered at the new information, but as he played the reveal in loop a few times in his head, it left him wondering with a more baffled expression. Wait. Did he? Before he could finish his sentence, he heard the door to the apartment complex open, revealing Izuku in his school uniform with his backpack on. His face looked serious for a moment, but as soon as his eyes laid on the gray-blonde boy, it morphed into surprise. Oh. Asta. You're still here. Yep. Asta confirms with a toothy grin. I figured that your ride on the subway would be less boring if I stuck around, so here I am. Izuku blinks at his friend a few times before his lips break into a smile. That sounds good, Asta. Let's go. Way ahead of ya, bud. And with that said, the boys set off towards the subway station, as it's the fastest way towards UA while they can save the energy for the entrance exams. Minutes later, the boys have made it onto a train just in time with the few hours they have still available. They were now sat next to each other while waiting for the train to take them to UA High School. Both are determined to pass the exams and hope that their training has paid off for them. As they continued to wait, Izuku decided to speak up to break the silence. "Hey, Asta." The gray-blonde boy turns his head towards Izuku. "What's up?" With pink cheeks of embarrassment, Izuku pokes his two fingers together and begins to talk. "I just want to apologize to you about those earlier months." "Eh?" Asta's face wore confusion. "What have you got to be sorry for?" "It's about how I acted towards you while I was overworking myself with the training. I kept telling you that I was fine and that it was no big deal. And because of my sluggishness, I might have come off as rude. And for that, I want to say sorry." Asta's eyes broaden a little at Izuku's apology. Yes, he was a little rude when he kept telling him that he was okay, but it was never on the level of Katsuki's, or even hostile in general. "Izuku, like I said before, you have nothing to apologize for." "Huh?" A question mark pops from Izuku's head. "I was like that too once upon a time, back when it was revealed that I was quirkless. I would always overwork myself because of how obsessive I was to get strong as quickly as possible. I was so concerned with being strong, I didn't pay attention to how straining it was." "Whoa. Really?" Really, Asta answers with a nod before lifting his head up to look at the ceiling of the train. "And I tell ya, if it weren't for my pops I would have continued to hurt myself like that. He taught me that it was okay to go beyond my limits, but not to overdo it too much. And that's exactly what I did. Go beyond, but not too beyond to the point where I can't move at all." Asta then looks back at Izuku. "And I can assume that's what you did too, right? Go beyond your limits, but not too much?" Izuku flinched at the question before slowly nodding. "Yeah. I really wanted to be like All Might. And I guess I wanted to be like you as well." Asta laughs with his friend after he admitted the last part. "Did I inspire you that much?" "Of course you did." Izuku insists. "How could I not be after I first met you? With both your bold declaration on wanting to be the first quirkless hero, to your very strong physique, it was those, along with both your and All Might's words of encouragement after that sludge villain incident that I decided that my path on being a hero has been set in stone. And nothing is going to stop me from achieving my goal." Asta grins at his friend and pats him on the back with closed eyes. "Well, good on ya, bud. That's exactly the attitude I expected from ya. You're gonna a great hero, Izuku." Asta opened his eyes so he can see again, and once he did, he saw that Izuku was sticking out his fist towards him. "No. We will be great heroes, Asta." Asta gasps lightly at Izuku's declaration before snickering with him. He brings up his fist and connects it with Izuku's. Once they made contact, the boys smirk at each other with eyes full of determination. "We've got this, Izuku." "Yeah. Now let's do this." "Yeah," Asta agrees. Before they both finish with, "Let's become the greatest heroes, together." And with that, the boys continue their wait on the train. And once it stops for UA, the boys will give it their all. Izuku, to succeed his idol hero, and Asta, to become the first quirkless hero. The UA High School Hero Course. It's a course designed to give students everything they need to become a pro hero. And according to most people, it is the toughest and most popular hero course in Japan, and only 1 in 300 applicants is accepted. But that information didn't scare off the two boys that were aiming to become heroes at that school. If anything, it made both Asta and Izuku more motivated to do the best that they can to be accepted. And after riding the subway train for 40 minutes, the boys have finally arrived at their destination. Although they had to run a little bit to get to UA itself, they were able to get there. "Phew! We made it!" Izuku exclaims while holding on to the straps of his backpack. "And right on time, too." Asta adds with a toothy grin while adjusting his headband. The boys then tilt their heads up to get a look at the building, and what they saw made Asta develop stars in his eyes while raising his fists in front of himself in excitement. "Wow! This place is huge and gorgeous. While Asta was stoked with the school building, Izuku's lips quiver nervously despite his eyes being narrowed. There was no time for me to test out the power All Might has granted me. Izuku then holds a hand to his mouth with a queasy expression, remembering exactly how he obtained one for all. Hey, you doing okay, bud? Asta asks him, noticing his uncomfortable expression. Why yeah. I'm good, Izuku assures him before looking away with an embarrassed face. I'm just, remembering the hair he gave me. Asta understood what he meant and cringed with him. Well, did it do something? Are you feeling anything right now? Izuku shakes his head. Not really, no. In fact, I still feel the same. Move aside, Deku and Bakasta. Izuku jumped at the familiar tough voice while Asta zipped his head at the source. Izuku followed and saw a familiar blonde boy looking as grumpy as ever. Kaken. Bakugou. Get out of my way or you're both dead, Katsuki growls. Quirkless duo. As if on instinct, Izuku takes 2 steps back and flails his arms in front of himself. HHA. Morning, Kaken. Let's do our best. Much to the boys' surprise, Katsuki just brushes by Izuku, not bothering to scare one of them even further with his explosions. In fact, during their months of training, Izuku noticed that the ash-blonde boy has stopped tormenting him. He still talks to him aggressively, but he hasn't gone as far as he used to. As he kept his eyes on him, Asta noticed Katsuki's face twitching a little when a few of the other students from different junior high schools started to talk about him quietly, associating the ash-blonde boy with the sludge villain incident. His attitude's still intact, but, something is, a tiny bit different about him. Can't quite put my finger on it, but I know it's there. Asta then looks over to Izuku and pats him on the shoulder, getting his attention. You alright, bud? Oh. Why yeah, Izuku answers with a stutter and a nod. I just gotta stop flinching instinctively. Asta nods in agreement before facing forwards towards the hero school. Don't worry, Izuku. This is no longer like before. Just remember the past 10 months and I'm sure you'll be golden. Izuku nods back with a wide grin of his own. Yeah. I just need to toughen up and move forward. Izuku's teeth show from the smile as he makes a heroic step forward. This will be my first step towards becoming a hero. But just as he made that first step, Izuku suddenly trips on his own feet and begins to fall forward like a plank of wood. Oh no. Izuku. Asta was about to catch Izuku before he gets hurt. But as he moved, he paused to see that Izuku's body remained in place, catching both him and Izuku off guard. Hey, you okay? Eep. Izuku squeaks when he heard a girl's voice talk to him while Asta turned around towards the source. As they looked, the boys see a short auburn-haired girl with a slender yet curvy figure. She has large and round eyes matching the color of her hair and a perpetual blush on her cheeks. Asta watches the girl in question place a hand on Izuku's shoulder gently, allowing him to carefully plop back onto the ground. The gray-blonde boy rose a brow at this phenomenon, wondering if it has to do with her quirk, while Izuku's face started beaming red simply because a girl was near him. And she touched him. That was my quirk you've experienced, mister. It's called zero gravity. After explaining her power, the girl giggles with a light blush. Sorry for using it on you. Oh no. I should be thanking you, actually. The girl hears another boy speak up and turns her head to see Asta approaching her with a smile. If you hadn't saved my friend here, he would have face-planted onto the ground. I'm grateful that you did what you did. The girl's eyes widen at Asta before she closes them with a smile back. Oh, that's no problem. Besides, it's a bad omen to trip and fall. The girl then looks over to Izuku and sees that his head was now steaming like a pot. I know, this sure is nerve-wracking, am I right? Yeah. Seeing that his friend was still stuttering shyly, Asta spoke next. At first, it is, miss. But we've already gotten this far, right? So we might as well make the best of it. The girl laughs with Asta while grabbing onto the straps of her backpack. Yeah. That's right. With another happy tither, the girl turns around and starts to walk towards the school while waving a hand at the 2 boys. Best of luck to you too. Best of luck to you, too, miss. Asta replies with a wave back with Izuku waving timidly with his face still red. Well, we better get a move on, Izuku. Asta took 3 steps forwards towards the building. And as he did, he noticed that his friend wasn't next to him. Izuku? Asta turned his head around further and saw that Izuku was grinning stupidly to himself with a gleaming face. I talked to a girl. I actually talked to a girl. Asta deadpans at Izuku, knowing exactly what he was thinking and knows that he didn't actually speak to her. But as he kept smiling to himself with glee while finally getting a move on, Asta just shrugs as he follows him. I'll let him have it. The 2 boys finally made their way inside the UA Hero School building. Upon entry, they look around their surroundings with the most pleasant surprise ever. Wow! It's even more appealing inside. Asta exclaims in joy with stars shining in his eyes. You can say that again, Asta. Izuku adds with the same emotions as his friend. As the 2 admired the place, some of the students slowed down their walking when they spotted Asta. Hey, isn't that the kid from the sludge villain incident? A boy asks. Yeah, I think so, a girl answers. That headband does look familiar. The boys stop scanning the inside of UA when they hear the students murmur about them, making Asta's ears twitch a little as he heard what they were talking about. I heard he was able to rescue the other 2 guys from the sludge villain without a quirk. Yeah, so did I. I even heard that that kid with the headband doesn't even have a quirk. Really? So, does he plan on getting in the hero course the same way he took care of that blob of mud? I doubt it. He only saved 2 of his friends, he never truly defeated the villain. Hey, you never know, man, there might be some surprises with that guy. And after seeing the moves he's pulled off, I think he might have a chance. Asta's ears and brows kept twitching as the students continued to talk about him. Seeing his expression, Izuku tapped on his shoulder, resulting in Asta jumping from his spot and darting his eyes at him. Everything okay, Asta? Asta blinks at his friend before smiling. Yeah, I'm good. Come on, let's find a spot to sit so we can get started. Right. And with that, the 2 boys marched forward towards the auditorium. No matter what obstacles come in front of them, it won't deter them from their goals. Ah, heck. Why is finding a seat so darn strong? Having got to the auditorium, Asta was now having a tough time finding a spot for him to sit. Izuku has found his own spot while walking with Asta, and after discovering that there was only 1 seat at the row, Izuku insisted that he can sit on his own, even if Katsuki was next to him. Asta was hesitant at first, but he reluctantly heeded his friend's words and went to find another seat. The gray-blonde boy looked high and low, and he still had no luck finding a chair to sit in. And even if he did, he was told that it was saved for some friends who were taking a quick trip to the bathroom. After a few more minutes of searching and moving at the speed that would make some viewers think he's teleporting like in an animatic, Asta fell to his knees with tears streaming like waterfalls. Ah CRP. Ah CRP, CRP, ah CRP. If I don't find a seat soon, I don't think I'll be able to start the exams. This seat is open to take, ribbit. Asta blinked with beady eyes when he heard someone speak to him. Turning his head right, he looks to see a short, relatively slender girl patting on the chair next to her, appearing to have a frog-like appearance. The girl has black oval-shaped eyes, large hands, big feet, and very long dark sea-green hair that reached all the way to her waist with the ends tied together at the bottom in a bow. Oh. Thank you kindly, miss. Asta says to the green-haired girl before taking his seat next to her. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but you saved my bacon here. You're welcome, the girl replied with another ribbit. Just try to keep your voice down. You're a little too loud. Asta's eyes widen a little at her last sentence before blushing with horizontal eyes. Sorry. I shout whenever I'm very excited and pumped up. Ha ha ha. The green-haired girl looks at Asta with her expression not changing in the slightest. Can I assume you're excited about the exams? Well, I guess you can say that, Asta answers. Although, I'd be lying if I said that I don't feel the slightest bit nervous about them. Well, this is the hero course, ribbit, so we're going to have a lot of expectations on how this will go. At least for the more physical portion, that is. Yeah, I can imagine. Asta then lifts his arms in front of them and clenches his hands into fists. But I ain't backing down anytime soon. I've worked my butt off to get this far, and I'm not letting this nervousness I feel make me turn back. The green-haired girl blinks at Asta while placing a finger on her chin. You're quite the determined boy, aren't you? Asta snickers at the girl's compliment. You know it. I refuse to give up now. I'm giving this exam everything I got, both mentally and physically. You're yelling again. Asta's eyes widen at what she said and apologizes again. As he was, the girl kept her stare on the now bashful boy. Still, I feel like I've heard of this boy before. I was busy studying and training for this exam, but my siblings kept telling me about a quirkless boy they saw on TV. Oh yeah, the girl's thoughts were cut off when Asta speaks to her again. My name's Asta Kurosaki, but you can call me Asta. The girl tilted her head at the sudden introduction with a rib bit before deciding to tell him her name, too. Tsuyu Azui. Let's do our best from here on out, Asta-chan. Agreed, Azui-san. After introducing themselves to each other, the two noticed the lights of the auditorium die down, prompting them and the rest of the students from different junior high schools to be silent and face forwards towards the center of the stage, where the lights there are still shining bright. On the large screen at the stage, the logo for UA can be seen smack in the middle of it as soon as it turned on. Seconds after that, a tall, funky-looking man walks onto the stage and flashes the kids a grin with his shades flashing in sync with the smile. The man has a large blonde mohawk, red eyes covered by golden sunglasses, and an attire that makes one assume that he's into any kind of punk rock band associated with the appearance. Welcome one and all, UA candidates, to today's live performance. The man roars before putting a hand over to his ear. Everybody say HEY. Everyone was dead silent. Not a single student responded to the man's mighty call. Some covered their ears because of how loud he was, while some just stared at him with deadpans. And people say I'm too rowdy, Asta whispers with a beady-eyed deadpan of his own. Tsuyu heard what Asta uttered and said nothing, only rib-biting before shifting her eyes back at the man in the punk rock costume. No response. The blonde man questions timidly before returning back to his cheerful persona. Well, that's cool, my examinee listeners. Most of you know me, but I am the voice hero, Present Mike, and I'm here to present the guidelines of your practical. Are you ready? Present Mike screams a cheer again, hoping for at least some of the students to respond with the same enthusiasm as himself. But once again, the crowd was silent. However, if one listened carefully, they can hear the subtle chirping of a cricket. Wow. Tough crowd. Present Mike whispers with a sad frown before getting back into character. But anyway, let's have a look at how the exams will go, shall we, my listeners? As if on cue, the screen behind the Mohawk man flashed a different photo onto it. Upon further inspection, the students saw the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G in their own box connected to a location that appears to be where the physical portion of the exam will take place. Now, y'all will be experiencing 10-minute long mock cityscape maneuvers. Present Mike continues with a peace sign. Bring along whatever you need to perform this portion of the exams. After this presentation and that you've taken care of the written portion, y'all will each head to your assigned testing location. Asta studies the image on the screen while paying attention to Present Mike's explanation and nods to himself with a thinking expression. I understand. Because of how many of us there are, they've prepared multiple rooms so that the physical portion of the exams can be taken care of quicker. Tsuyu nods at Asta in confirmation with a rib bit. That, and so the folks from the same junior high school can't help each other out since the classmates will be in different rooms. At least that's what I'm assuming. Asta hums at Tsuyu's thoughts before the screen changes images to a different portion of the arena with characters that Asta found to be familiar with robots next to those characters. Each site is filled with 3 kinds of faux villains. Points are awarded for defeating each robot according to their respective difficulty levels. After Present Mike says that, the screen then shows another familiar character jumping, throwing fireballs, and attacking with his tail that he didn't have seconds ago. Use your quirks to disable these faux villains and earn points. You can destroy them, or immobilize them. That's your goal, listeners. The higher your score, the higher chance you'll be accepted into UA. And of course, going anti-hero and attacking other examinees is prohibited. So don't play dirty, folks. Are they using Super Mario Bros. For their examples on how the physical exams will work? Asta questions with a tilted head. Yup, Tsuyu confirms before placing a finger on her chin. Odd choice for showing the instructions, though. I'll say. Excuse me. May I ask a question, Present Mike Sensei? Everyone turns their heads with raised brows when they hear someone speak. Upon eye contact, they see a tall male student with short dark blue hair and blue eyes behind a pair of glasses raising his hand. Present Mike blinks at the student before giving him an OK symbol with his hand. Why yes. Go ahead. The glasses-wearing man proceeds to pull out a piece of paper he kept with him and points a finger at it with a very serious expression. There appear to be no fewer than 4 varieties of the faux villain in this handout. Such a blatant error, if it is one, is highly unbecoming for UA, Japan's top hero academy. We're all here today in the hopes of being molded into model heroes. Asta rose a brow at what the blue-haired man said before taking out his own copy of the handout. After looking back at the screen and the paper a few times, the gray-blonde boy learned that the glasses-wearing boy was correct. That's quite the find he's made, Asta thought as he sets his eyes back on him. I'll bet he'll make quite the hero with smarts like his. And you, with the curly hair. Asta then saw that the blue-haired student was now pointing somewhere. When everyone looked, they see that he was pointing at Izuku, who jumped with a chirp when he caught his attention. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting, the boy says with a glare, scaring the green-haired boy a little. If this is some sort of game to you, then please leave immediately. Asta's brow starts to twitch when he then starts to hear some of the students giggle and snicker at Izuku's now embarrassed state. With his hearing, he could hear them whispering to each other at how much of a stuttering mess he was, how he might not make it through the exams, and all sorts of things that made poor Izuku more nervous than before. With gritted teeth, Asta stands up and shoots a narrow-eyed stare with contracted irises right at the blue-haired student, unknowingly getting Tsuyu's attention in the progress. Oi! Glasses guy! Everyone stops and turns their heads to Asta when they hear him roar for the blue-haired boy, who gasped and looked at Asta when he heard him. Maybe that guy over there is murmuring because he's thinking up a heroic strategy to pass the exams. He might also be a little nervous about how he'll perform because of how difficult it will be. And I know he's not the only one feeling this way. Everyone's eyes widen at Asta's outburst, with the blue-haired student being the most shocked at him. Present Mike cocked a brow in slight interest, recognizing the gray-blonde hair and the structure of his face from 10 months ago. And another thing. Asta continues before pointing a finger at the glasses-wearing boy. Him thinking it's a game. What kind of a crappy conclusion is that? Here you were seconds ago using great detective skills to find something out about the faux villains only for you to falter by making such a terrible accusation towards him. It's kind of a jerk move, pal. Izuku gasps at Asta with a shocked face while Katsuki just kept his eyes on the gray-blonde boy with furrowed brows and a frown. That hit the glasses-wearing boy strong. While his body shivered at Asta's words, he shifts his eyes downwards while slowly sitting back down while quietly saying, sorry. In the process, surprising a few of the students. While most have stayed quiet, there were a few students that started whispering to each other as soon as they started to recognize Asta from the incident 10 months ago. Tsuyu kept her stare onto Asta, who was sitting back down after taking a breath to calm himself down. Wow, Asta-chan, she whispers with a rib bit. That was quite the statement you made to him. Sorry about that, Asta says while clenching his hands. That green-haired guy up there. He's my friend, and after the glasses guy jumped to such a bad conclusion, Tsuyu smiles at Asta, catching the young boy off guard when she followed it with a gentle hand on his shoulder. Say no more, Asta-chan. You felt the need to protect your friend, and you did just that. It's very kind of you to do that. Asta's eyes widen at the frog-like girl. He then smiles at her with a grateful expression. Thanks for understanding, Azui-san. Call me Tsu. Asta tilts his head. I said you can call me Tsu, Asta-chan. Asta tilts his head at the offer. Without an honorific? It can be whatever you want as long as it's good, ribbit. Normally, I'd only allow friends to call me Tsu, but since you're a nice guy, I think I'll start letting you call me that, too, ribbit. Asta blinks at Tsuyu 4 times before smirking again and facing forward. Well, if that's what you want, then I'll address you as such. Asta pauses to look back at Tsuyu and gives her a toothy grin with closed eyes. Tsu-chan. Tsuyu moves her head back a little in slight surprise at the kind smile. As she looked away from him to face Present Mike, her cheeks slowly faded into pink. Alright, anyway, Present Mike began after Asta's outburst towards the blue-haired boy has passed. That was a nice catch, examinee 711. You have my thanks. The glasses-wearing student didn't respond. But, you see, the 4th faux villain variety gives you 0 points. He's more of an obstacle that you need to avoid at all costs. Take the thwomp from Super Mario Bros., for example. There is only one at each site. A gimmick that'll rampage around in close quarters. I see, the blue-haired boy says, standing up. So it's like an unstoppable gimmick. He then bows his head to Present Mike. Thank you, sir. I apologize for the interruption. Welp, that's all from me, ladies and gents. Present Mike booms with excitement. I'll leave my listeners with our school motto. Like the great hero, Napoleon Bonaparte once said. True heroism consists of being superior to the ills of life. The blonde man then gives the students 2 peace signs before shouting. Go plus ultra. Asta blinks at the 2 words that echoed through the auditorium and snickers in enthusiasm. Hey, I like that phrase. It's got a nice ring to it. With a wider grin, Asta stands up, pumps his fists into the air and roars, plus ultra. While everyone gave Asta a weird look, with Tsuyu tilting her head at him, Present Mike laughs with the gray-blonde boy, happy that someone repeated with him for once. Ha ha. Glad to see that someone's motivated. Now, break a leg out there, folks. With that said, everyone else stood up from their spots and started to walk their way towards the exams. As they were, Asta looks towards Tsuyu and gives her a wave. Welp, good luck out there, Tsu-chan. I hope that we both pass. Tsuyu nods with a ribbit. Good luck to you too, Asta-chan. After nodding back, Asta marched forward towards the doors that would lead him to the first part of the exams. Alrighty. Time for all of my studying to pay off, along with my strength for the next portion. After the written portion of the exam was taken care of, Asta was now outside at his assigned cityscape with his black running shoes, gray running pants, and his black hoodie with its sleeves rolled up, exposing his muscular arms. Whoa! This is awesome! Asta shouts as he looks at his surroundings with stars in his eyes. I mean, I knew the arena would be big, but up close, this place is ginormous. It can almost be considered as an actual city. Asta continued to look at the nicely constructed buildings until his ears picked up the voices of the examinees that are with him. Turning his head behind him, Asta could see a variety of students with their own choice in outfits and even equipment to match their quirks. One of the many students is a muscular red-haired boy with matching colored eyes wearing all red, another boy who's tall and has chin-length black hair and matching eyes with biceps looking a little bulky than usual, a girl with teal eyes and orange hair tied in a ponytail wearing an outfit that's suited for a kung fu warrior, and a petite girl with onyx eyes, short dark purple hair with an asymmetrical fringe and 2 reflections shaped like heartbeat monitor waves, and flexible plug-like earphone jacks hanging from each of her earlobes, appearing as extra limbs. As he observed the examinees further, Asta knew that the competition will be intense because of the possible types of quirks they have. But like the other mishaps from 10 months ago, it wasn't going to make him turn back. Well, if it isn't the kid who tangoed with the sludge villain. Asta's eyes widened when he heard someone call out to him. Turning his head, he sees an average-height blonde man with blue eyes walking over to him with his hands in his pockets and a smug face, an expression that made Asta a little wary of him. Can I help you? Oh, no, the blonde man replies with his grin still intact. I'm just measuring up who my current opponents are in this exam. And looking at you, while your physique is rather impressive, you're easy pickings for those faux villains. Asta's expression didn't change, but he did frown at how he was behaving. Don't judge a book by its cover, mister. The blonde boy laughs with a hand on his forehead, causing the other students to look over towards the 2 boys. Some of the students rose a brow in curiosity, while a small few stared at the gray-blonde boy in familiarity. After calming down from his laughter, the blonde boy gave Asta a wide-eyed stare and a bigger grin. What's there to judge? You've got no DMN quirk. And even if your thick muscles will get you far, you're just like the rest of these weaklings. The boy's smug expression turns wilder. I shall be the one to pass with flying colors. And once I do, I'll dash. The blonde boy was interrupted when Asta got closer to him, catching him and the other students watching off guard. And upon seeing his face, the blonde boy froze with a nervous expression when Asta stared at him with a very rigid face. Being a hero is not a game, and it should not be a competition. Please take this exam seriously. Everyone gasps at the serious tone in the grey blonde boy's voice, having been surprised at Asta's response to the blonde boy despite being loud and a little crazy according to the few who recognized him. But no one was affected by Asta's scolding more than the blonde boy. He was stumbling on his words with widened eyes trying to find a counter to the grey blonde boy. And just as he found something to say back to him. And begin. Asta started to sprint forwards into the arena as soon as he heard Present Mix's voice boom from somewhere in the arena, confusing the examinees as they watch him get farther and farther from them into the cityscape. What are y'all standing around for? Present Mike asks the students from a tall building, getting their attention. There ain't no countdowns in a real battle. Y'all better follow that boy's lead if you want to get into UA. With a gasp and realization, the students began to run towards where Asta went as fast as they could, not wanting to fall behind. Back with Asta, he was already inside of the cityscape, currently in between two buildings while keeping alert with his surroundings. Okay. If I were a villain that wants to destroy a hero, where would I jump out and attack? Kaboom. Ha. Asta did a 180-degree turn when he heard an explosion from behind him, revealing that the building to his right got destroyed by what appears to be a large robotic arm. As the building crumbled, Asta yelps with small irises when he sees a large green robot with a white number 1 painted on each of its blade-shaped shields with a Gatling gun for one arm and the other being just a robot arm. That's a one-pointer. Asta shouts as it jaunts closer to him, prompting the grey-blonde boy to get in a fighting position. The robot made the first move, aiming its Gatling gun arm towards Asta. With an eep, the grey-blonde boy rolls right to avoid the RBB bullets from the gun. Seeing his move, the faux villain lifts its other arm to do a downward strike. Asta sidesteps the attack. And when he sees that the robot's arm is still on the ground, he took this chance to jump on top of it and run forwards towards its head. Before the robot could do anything, Asta leaps off its arm and lands on its neck. As he did, the robot started to jolt its body around in an attempt to shake Asta off. But he won't let go. Alrighty. Where's that sons of gun's weak spot? Asta kept his grip tight on the faux villain's neck while searching for a spot to destroy with a kick or his bare hands. As he was, the robot's shaking got stronger and stronger, causing one of Asta's arms to slip off of its neck. Regaining his grip, Asta kept searching with stern contracted irises until they come across a small pair of wires connecting to the very bottom of its neck. His eyes trace the wires a few times before he smirks at them. Bingo! As soon as he made this discovery, the robot swung its neck backwards. And because Asta was distracted by his finding, he was flung off of the faux villain and landed on the rubble from the destroyed building on his back. Asta hissed at the jolt of pain that went through his spine, but thankfully, nothing was broken and none of the sharp material from the debris stabbed him anywhere. He pushes his hands onto the pile of debris he's on in an attempt to get up, but as he was, his eyes broaden a little when he felt something on his right hand. Turning his head to it, Asta sees a piece of metal. Upon further inspection, he saw that it was almost shaped like a katana's blade, but a little thicker than the blade of the actual Japanese sword, with the sharp edge itself being a little jagged and the tip of the metal about as pointy as a spear's. Asta studies the metal's shape further, and judging by its color's appearance, it looked to be in pretty great condition despite it being just blown off from the building the one-pointer destroyed. I wonder. Target locked. Asta snaps his head back to the robot and screeches when he sees its chain gun arm aimed right at him. Firing. With his instincts kicking in, Asta rolled sideways and jumps to the one-pointer's right side to avoid the hailstorm of RBB bullets. With the sword-like metal still gripped in his right hand, he then leaps back on top of its back and grabs onto its neck with his left hand. Flipping the sharp metal in a reverse grip, Asta stares down at the wires at the bottom of the one-pointer's neck and takes aim. Here goes nothing. With fire in his eyes, Asta brings the pointed edge of the metal downwards with a strong force and impales it into the robot's neck, cutting the wires in the process. The foe villain was reaching its hand towards Asta to throw him off again, but it came to a halt as the metal severed the cables while stuck in its neck. The one-pointer remained still for 5 more seconds before Asta watches it slowly lean forward and begin to fall. Asta loses balance for a moment while flailing his arms with white eyes and quickly grabs onto his metal to regain it as it flops onto the ground with a loud thud. As soon as it did, the red eye of the robot flickered a few times before completely turning off, rendering the foe villain deactivated. Asta looks down at the destroyed robot with surprise all over his face. Holy CRP, it worked. After looking over his first point, Asta looks back at the metal that aided in slaying the robot, still bewildered that it was strong enough to stab its neck. But can it be pulled out and used again? Wanting to test his question, Asta grabs onto the metal with both of his hands and pulls with all of his might. It took a couple of tugs, but he finally got it out, resulting in the gray-blonde boy jumping off the robot and landing on the ground on his butt. Asta hisses as he gets back up while rubbing his bottom with his left hand. After the pain receded, he looks over to his other hand that carried the metal that destroyed the foe villain. And much to his surprise, the pointed end and the sharp edge were still intact. Feeling the need to double-check, Asta quickly positioned himself with the metal and performed some test swings with it as if it were a sword. Feels sturdy enough to keep using. As he kept swngng the metal, both with one hand and 2 hands, Asta shifts his eyes towards a thick metal pole that remains stuck on the ground from his battle with the one-pointer. With a thoughtful expression, he approaches it and takes aim with his sharp metal. With a roar, Asta hits the metal against the pole as strong as he could. Once it made contact, he saw that the metal didn't bend even the slightest. He expected the top part with the sharp point to make at least a little curve, but since he didn't hit the pole with the top, it was still good. With a cocked brow, Asta brings his weapon closer to his face. Scanning the object for another moment, he smiles to himself. Well, I guess this will serve as my weapon against those foe villains, for now. With his grip tightened on the weapon, Asta sets off back outside in the open field of the arena with his new makeshift sword. Alrighty. I've got 1 point, Asta says while increasing his speed from a jog to a run. Now let's see if I can rake up some more. Now out from between the 2 buildings, one of which was destroyed, Asta encounters another one-pointer that leaped in front of him. It tried to punch the gray-blonde boy, but he dodged to the right before jumping forward towards its face. With gritted teeth, Asta aims the pointed part of his makeshift weapon at its eye and thrusts his arm forward. He impales the eye, causing the robot to stop in place. Because it is now blinded, the foe villain started to fire off its chain gun aimlessly, only hitting the spots where Asta wasn't at. And thankfully, it wasn't gunning down anyone else with its RBB bullets. Landing after attacking, Asta quickly pulls out his metal and zips around the robot to jump and land the finishing blow on its neck, scoring himself another point. After pulling out his weapon, Asta kept moving forward like there's no tomorrow. While he noticed from the corner of his eyes that the other students were fighting robots too. He saw the red-haired kid appearing more rock-like punching a one-pointer in the face, cleaving its head off in the process, then the black-haired boy using tape from his arms to trip over an enemy, and finally, the purple-haired girl using some kind of sonic waves from her unique lobes to blast away a one-pointer's legs. This is getting fierce. Asta thought as he stares back forward. If I'm not quick, there won't be any robots left. Just as he thought that last sentence, another robot appears before him. It looked like a hybrid of a 4-legged spider, a dinosaur, and a scorpion. On the front legs, Asta saw the number 2 on each one, confirming its identity as a 2-pointer. Asta kept his stare locked onto the foe villain, waiting for it to make its move so he can study its pattern while looking for any weak spots of its own. As he did, the robot aimed its tail at Asta and strikes it forward. Asta parried it just as it reached him, causing the tail to curve around and hit itself in the face. He took that moment to jump and reach for the 2-pointer's head and move his metal forward, stabbing both of its eyes, with the point hitting the left eye and going through its head to poke out of the right eye. After releasing the metal from the 2-pointer's head, Asta landed and then aimed it at the bottom of the front of its neck, seeing a gap in between the parts. And sure enough, the makeshift sword was able to penetrate through there and shut down the robot because of the severed cables in the neck, making it collapse on the ground after Asta pulls his weapon out of its neck. Ha! What is it with these robots having necks as the spot to disable them? Asta kept his stare on the two-pointer for another second before shrugging. Okay, that would total my points to 4. I better keep moving and dash. OCRP. Asta pauses his speaking when he heard a female voice shout out. Turning towards the source, his eyes widen when he sees two-pointers and a robot that looked a little more tank-like with shoulder guns that has a red 3 painted on each arm of it, showing that this robot in the middle of the two-pointers is a 3-pointer, the toughest robot of the 3, not counting the 0-pointer. And from in front of them, he could catch a sight of dark moss-green hair from a girl that looks to be having a strong time getting away from the faux villains because of some of her body caught in the rubble caused by the bots. Oh no! That girl in front of those 3 robots is in trouble. With narrowed eyes, Asta charges forward while cocking his makeshift sword to his side. Oi! Scrap metal, his roaring seemed to have caught their attention as the robots slowly turned their heads towards the gray-blonde boy who kept coming. Y'all should split. The first two-pointer attempts to rush Asta, only for him to slide under it and roll towards the 3-pointer, blocking the path between the robot and the green-haired girl, who watched the newcomer with surprise on her face. DMN. This 3-pointer looks more protective than the other robots. Asta thought as he studied it while blocking some attacks from the 2-pointers. I'm not even sure if my metal here can make a dent without bending or breaking. The green-haired girl continued to watch Asta defend her and himself from the 2-pointers while the 3-pointer stalked closer towards them. Feeling the tension of the battle, she shouts out to him in hopes to help him. Oi, dude. Try to destroy one of the 3-pointer's shoulder guns. Asta takes a quick glance at the girl before setting his focus back onto the robots. But how will I do that? Try jamming them with whatever can fit through those holes. But be careful. They launch missiles. Asta grits his teeth as kept defending the girl from the 2-pointers and the 3-pointer. As he observed the guns on the 3-pointer's shoulders, he saw that they were quite small to fit the missiles the girl spoke of, and there wasn't quite anything he could quickly use instead of his metal without going too far and letting the girl get hurt by the faux villains. The girl behind me wants me to clog up the 3-pointer's guns, he thought while blocking another tail strike from a 2-pointer. But the holes look too small, and I don't want to risk breaking my weapon. Just what can I possibly use to? Wait. She mentioned something about missiles. Asta takes another look at the tails on the 2-pointers and traces their size and shape with his eyes. As he did, an idea hatched in his head. Gripping his makeshift sword in his hand, Asta jumps above to the 3-pointer and lands on one of its guns. Oi! 2-pointers, the 2 robots turn their heads over to where Asta is and see him turn around and smack his butt in front of them. Try me, you pieces of scrap metal. The green-haired girl gasps when she sees Asta trying to tempt one of the 2-pointers to attack him. His plan seems to work, as the first one aimed its tail towards him and went to hit him, only for Asta to jump off the 3-pointer's missile launcher in time just as the tip of the tail pierced it. As a result of this, Asta and the girl look to see the 3-pointer's right shoulder blow up because of the 2-pointer's tail hitting one of the missiles inside it. The blast radius even caught the 2-pointer that stabbed it, blowing both of the robots away with the 3-pointer disabled and the 2-pointer destroyed beyond repair because of Asta's actions. The dark green-haired girl continues to watch in awe as Asta then engages the last 2-pointer near them. She watches him jump as high as he can go and take out the robot's eyes with his makeshift sword before finally shutting it down with a stab in its neck. After watching the faux villain fall to the ground, instead of counting how many points in total he has, Asta immediately turns around and approaches the green-haired girl that still has her arms and legs trapped in the rubble caused by the robots. Keep still, miss. I'm getting ya out of there. Dropping his sharp metal, Asta starts with the rubble on her right arm and grabs hold of the debris. Heave. Ho. The green-haired girl felt the pressure be removed as soon as Asta lifted them up, leaving her appalled at his raw strength as he did the same for her other arm and her legs. Phew. You alright, miss? Asta asks the girl immediately after dusting his hands from freeing her from the debris. Nothing broken. The green-haired girl blinks at Asta a few times before twirling some strands of hair in her hand. Why? Yeah. I'm good. Asta looks over to the girl to double-check for any potential bruises, as he did, His face froze when he saw something out of the ordinary that spooked him. Ah! No, you're not. Huh? The green-haired girl looks over to where the freaked-out Asta was pointing and sees that her left arm was missing. Oh, that? Ha 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 ha. 'Tis but a scratch. A scratch? Your arm's off. The green-haired girl lets out another hearty laugh with her one intact hand on her hip. Relax, dude. It really isn't anything to worry about. With a smirk, the girl aims her stub towards where she thinks her arm is and motions her head on that spot. Here, watch. Asta pays attention to what the green-haired girl was trying to do and looks to see her missing arm hover towards her and plug itself back into the stub like a magnet. See? Problem solved, the girl says as she flexes her reattached arm, drawing an astonished look from Asta. Whoa. So, does your quirk make your body parts magnetic and easily reattach or something? You're right on the reattach part, she answers. It's also based on a reptile's ability to regenerate lost or destroyed limbs. With a toothy grin, she points her thumb at herself. My quirk is called Lizard Tail Splitter. With it, not only can I do what I've explained earlier, but it'll also allow me to split my body up into a lot of pieces and get them to levitate and move through the air. She then covers her face with both of her hands for a moment before quickly removing them. Just like so. Asta jumps with a scream when he sees the dark green-haired girl's face split apart, making a rather scary expression because of each piece's arrangement. And after seeing Asta get freaked out by what she did, she puts her face back together while laughing her butt off for 10 seconds before calming down. Ha-ia gets them every time. Oh. That's not very hero-like to scare people, you know. The girl laughs at what the gray-blonde boy said and walks closer to him with a wider smile. You're pretty funny, dude. What's your name? Asta blinks in surprise at her sudden forwardness. Asta Kurosaki, but I'm okay with just Asta. Asta, eh. The girl puts a finger on her chin as she processed his name. After a few more seconds pass, she grins again and pats Asta on the shoulder twice. I like that name. Sounds cool, mine Setsuna Tokeichi. Asta remains silent for a moment before replying with a smile while scratching the back of his head. Well, it's nice to meet ya, but I think it's best we both get a move on. I've got an exam to pass after all. Yeah, you're right. Time gets shorter by the second, after all. With a nod, Setsuna began to run her own way, but not before turning her head around to Asta and giving him a thumbs up. Thanks again for back there, Asta-kun. And good luck. Best of luck to you, too. After he gave Setsuna a salute, Asta picks up his makeshift sword and proceeded to hunt for some more robots. And if there was anyone else that was about to have the same fate as that girl, he fully intends to help them too, for that's how a hero should be when anyone is in danger. Meanwhile, while the students were partaking in the physical portion of the entrance exams, a group of judges and teachers in charge of keeping track of the students and their scores are watching their current progress. Among these spectators, there was one in particular that has the appearance of a short white animal with a scar over his right eye and was wearing a tuxedo and orange lace-up sneakers. While his head was that of a mouse, the rest of his body parts would leave one to believe that he's a chimera that's able to walk on 2 legs. We don't tell them how many villains there are or how they're placed. The animal says before folding his paws. Such a wide battlefield and limited time brings out the best in them. A few of the teachers nod in agreement. There are those who can assess the situation in an instant, he continues while observing the students on the monitors. Those who'll never be late for the party, those who can cope with any given situation, and of course. The spectator looks to see Katsuki Bakugo surrounded by a huge pile of metal that used to be faux villains with his arms smoking from using a lot of explosions. There are the natural-born warriors. The abilities needed to preserve peace in our cities are judged by the points they earn. The teachers and other spectators nod and whisper to each other about their opinions on how the students are doing in the entrance exam. Some are intrigued with how they use their quirks, and some are thinking that they can do a little better. And then there's this interesting fella. Everyone looks over to where the chimera was focusing his attention on now. In the monitor they looked at, they saw Asta running around while fighting the faux villains with what some thought was some impressive swordsmanship and clever use of a broken piece of metal. Along his way, the Spectators then watch Asta help a female examinee from tripping and falling in a large pit created by a robot's attack. And after taking out another 2-pointer, he brought her to a safe area so she can get back on her feet. Thank you. You're welcome. Wait a minute, I think I've seen this kid before, the teacher who looked like a cement block with arms and legs said. Wasn't he on TV during the whole sludge villain incident, Principal Nizu? Indeed, the animal confirms with a nod and a wider smile after watching Asta save 2 more students from getting injured by falling walls. While All Might did defeat the sludge villain, it was that young lad who was able to pry the 2 hostages from his grasp. What makes it astounding? He did it despite his lack of a quirk. Interesting. Another judge says. He even knows how to improvise for combating the robots and finding their weak spots. Just who is this kid? His name is Asta Kurosaki. Everyone turns to see that a tall, curvaceous woman with sky-blue eyes and abundant spiky dark purple-black hair was the one who answered while staring intently at the monitor displaying the gray-blonde boy with a grin. Word is he's gotten some people bringing back the debate on if the quirkless should be able to become heroes because of his scuffle with the villain. Pausing, the woman's smirk widens as she witnesses Asta slide under a 2-pointer before jumping high in the air to decapitate the robot, disabling it in the process. And I must say, he's quite the treat to look at with a physique like his. After having made that comment, there was one spectator in particular who was paying attention to every single detail of Asta's performance with his arms crossed. He has long shoulder-length black hair and matching colored eyes that stayed on the monitor that displayed the quirkless, gray-blonde boy. He thought that term in quotations because this black-haired man has seen the footage of Asta fighting the sludge villain. Every single frame. And among those frames, he saw something happen to Asta's right eye that made him question if the boy really is quirkless. According to the documents, the doctors diagnosed Asta as such. But through his rather impressive maneuvers and how he discovered the sludge villain's weak spot, it was the sudden flicker of red in Asta's eye that made the black-haired man wonder if the doctors actually did their job properly. It was that same phenomenon that he was looking for right now. And while he was waiting for another possible moment like that, he watched Asta continue to slay the faux villains and help other students with his cunning parkour, his strength, and his skill with a blunt weapon. However, in his opinion, the spectator thought that Asta using a jagged piece of metal as a makeshift sword was pretty crude. A smart idea, but crude. This year's group is looking promising, aren't they? Another judge asks the others. Meh. No way to know yet. Another man says before guiding his finger to a red button with the text Yoruki SWCH at the bottom and presses. But this should tell us more about their true colors. Ha. Shink. 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 Asta has just finished his recent battle with 2 1-pointers and 1 2-pointer. So far, every encounter with these robots has gotten easier for him because of the attack patterns he's learned from them. As for the 3-pointers, they have become rare for him to come by after he defeated his second 3-pointer because the contestants with the stronger quirks would already take care of them as soon as he laid eyes on one every single time. Not that he was complaining. He was still getting a decent amount of robots coming to him, and as long as they were enough to get him into UA, that's all that matters to him. Phew. This is starting to become a grind. Asta says while wiping some sweat off his forehead. I don't even remember how many points I have now after doing all of this work, as well as saving those other guys that were about to get hurt. He then grabs hold of his medal and pulls it out of the 2-pointer he slew. Right, better get a move on and dash. Tum. Just as he rested his weapon on his shoulders, Asta froze still as he heard a huge explosion go off from behind him. Turning around, with other examinees near him to follow, they looked to see a large cloud of smoke from the blast blocking the view of something big that was slowly coming towards them. It took a moment before the smoke cleared. And as soon as it did, everyone's eyes widen when they see a giant robot on wheels having a rectangular prism-shaped head with 8 red eyes towering over them with its hands clutched onto the buildings. That large robot. Asta whispers with his body shaking a little as he observed it. This must be the 0-pointer. Just as he solved that puzzle, the 0-pointer crushes the top of a building in its left hand. And while Asta has expected it to be that strong, it didn't stop him from going eep when he saw the robot destroy it so easily. The 0-pointer then aims its right fist towards the ground and punches it strong, forcing everyone to cover their eyes with their arms because of the shockwave and the dust that spewed from where it punched. As soon as it stopped, the students immediately turn around and run as fast as they can away from the zero-pointer so it won't squash them. And while Asta was following from behind, he kept shifting his eyes left and right not only to look for any rubble to jump over so he won't trip but to also see if there's anyone who may trip over. His first instinct if one does trip over is to quickly get them back on their feet, which kinda also serves as a reason why Asta is letting the other students get past him. Thanks to all of his self-taught parkour training, Asta can detect any potential tripping hazards when he's running too fast. Taking a quick peek from behind, Asta's eyes nearly bulged from their sockets when he saw that the zero-pointer continued to destroy buildings as it locked its glowing red eyes onto him and the others while it kept moving forward. OHCRP. If I'm not careful, the pieces of those buildings may land right on top of me. Ribbit. Huh. Hearing a familiar voice, Asta stops dead in his tracks and turns his body around. Scanning what's behind him, he gasps loudly when he sees a familiar green-haired girl that he just befriended at the auditorium. What got him worried? Her legs were caught under some of the debris while she was sitting on her but from what he assumed was because of the other rubble near the one that's trapping her legs. That's Tsu-chan. Less than 2 minutes left, ladies and germs. 2 minutes. Asta grips onto his piece of metal tightly as he heard how much time he had left from present mic. If he wasn't quick, he'll lose out on collecting more points while avoiding the zero-pointer. But immediately after he thought of that, Asta remembered what it truly means to be a hero, to protect the innocent, and not to be rich and famous. And for the most part, it applied to the point collection and the possibility of some of the students treating this as a real-life arcade game of sorts for trying to go for the highest points. Followed by that thought, he also recalled what All Might told him during the sludge villain incident before he landed the finishing blow on the slimy fiend. A pro hero should always be ready to risk their lives, no matter the odds. With all of that in mind, Asta's eyes slid towards the zero-pointer with a tighter grip on his weapon. With a left foot forward, he began to sprint over towards the giant robot with the full intent of getting Tsuyu out of its path. As he kept going, he ran past the purple-haired girl with the plug-like earphone jacks from her earlobes. Oi! What the hell are you doing? The girl asks the gray-blonde boy as soon as she noticed him going in the opposite direction as the rest of the examinees. Somebody over there is in trouble. Asta replies without batting an eye to the girl, who continued to stare at him with bewilderment before resuming to run away from the zero-pointer. With a determined gaze, Asta kept sprinting towards the giant robot, hoping that he's fast enough to block it from running over Tsuyu as he saw that it wasn't too close to the trapped girl. Along the way, he dodged and leaped over the fallen pieces of the buildings the zero-pointer destroyed, using some of those as speed boosts while jumping over them by grabbing onto the top of the rubble and pulling forward. It took 10 seconds, but Asta finally got over to Tsuyu, catching the girl off guard when she saw him close to her. Asta-chan. It's okay, Tsu-chan. Asta tries to assure her despite his serious expression. Just keep still and I'll set your legs free. Just as he said that, Asta and Tsuyu jump when they hear the zero-pointer run over some of the rubble it created from destroying some of the buildings. Measuring the distance, Asta grits his teeth when he mentally notes that he's probably not going to have enough time to save Tsuyu because of how large and heavy the rubble trapping her legs are, as well as the ones piling on top of it. Weighing down his options quickly, Asta decides to stride past Tsuyu and face the robot head-on, making the girl even more shocked at his sudden action. Asta-chan. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 3. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Vizard Masky on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.